Well, hello everybody. We're going to get started here in just a minute or two, but wanted to get the live stream started. Please like, share, subscribe if you aren't already. Please get this shared out there. We're going to be starting here shortly. Thank you. Give it about one more minute, folks. About one more minute, and we'll get started. We got an action-packed show this evening. So much going on, so much to talk about, so many bills in the legislature. It's a really busy week down there. We're going to give you all the insider information to make you one of the most knowledgeable people here in Colorado about our state government. We have an incredible guest joining us this evening as well at about 7:30, Representative Rebecca Keltie. Really excited to talk to her. Please get your questions ready. We will be taking or looking for questions from the chat. So we'll get started here in just about 30 seconds or so. Well, I hope you're doing well, everybody. Hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. Welcome to our live stream this week. We are in the 7th week of the legislative session here on February 22nd, 2026. We're going to give you a breakdown of some of the most important bills being heard in the state capitol this week, talk to a great guest, Representative Rebecca Keltie, and have a lot of fun doing it. And we have Michael Vance. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Brandon. It's been a busy week, but I am still hanging in there strong.
Right on. Yeah, it's been a busy week down at the Capitol. It's absolutely crazy and so much going on. And we're going to get started, folks, here. Please share this with people. Like if you didn't like it already, throw a thumbs up there. Comment is always appreciated. And subscribe to Free State Colorado if you haven't. But a lot of great content coming out, a lot of great stuff to talk about this evening. A lot of fun. But Michael, you ready to get into it?
Absolutely.
Right on. So tonight's schedule, folks, we're going to start off by talking about some of the news of the week, some of the important news stories, some of the important events of this previous week, updates on some of the important bills that went through. Then about 7:30, we're going to have a Representative Rebecca Keltie joining us, and then at 8 o'clock, we're going to get into the bills that are being heard in committee hearings this week. And this is really important because that's your opportunity to speak, to show up and testify, to provide remote testimony, to say your piece about what's happening in our state government, get that information out there. And we're really encouraging you as well to reach out to the committee members ahead of the committee meeting, right? So if you know that an important bill is coming up in the House Finance Committee, email everybody in House Finance, send them give them a phone calls, tag them on social media, send them an email. If you can do it before the committee meeting and then you show up at the committee meeting, you're doing double duty there. And I think that's huge. So we'll talk about bills of the week. Then about 8:30ish or so, we're going to give you the big rundown, our little lightning round there, going through the biggest bills we're tracking this legislative session. So this is like the biggest, most important legislation. There's so many bills, folks. We're just going to give you some of the highlights, but we're definitely going to be talking about things you probably haven't heard anywhere else, especially on the news. Does this all sound good to you, Michael?
Yeah, it sounds great. We've got a lot to cover. I mean, we're a third of the way through the legislative session, but that means there's two-thirds to go, and they're really going to try to get us over this session. So let's hop in.
Perfect, perfect, awesome. So let's jump in, folks. Now take a screenshot here. If anything else, if you can't stick around for the full 2 hours, these are some of the most important bills being heard this week in committee hearings. So this is where we need people to have a voice. Let me pull up the screen actually and share that. You probably need to see what I'm talking about here. So let me pull that up for you. And talk about some of the most important bills coming up. So some of the biggest bills of the week here, folks. This is the stuff that, matters more than most of the others, we would say. And don't get me wrong, there's tons of important bills being heard, but we kind of wanted to break down at least some of the key ones, some of the most important ones for you to be testifying on, speaking in front of, emailing and getting in front of those legislators with this information for sure. So first bill being heard Monday. Actually, there's two really important bills in the Senate Judiciary Committee. So this is Monday, February 23rd at 1:30 p.m. At 1:30 p.m., Senate Bill 26-070, ban government access historical location information database. Big support on that bill, and we'll talk about it a little bit more as we get going tonight, but I really wanted to start this off for people who can't stick around. Take a screenshot of this. Senate Bill 71, use of surveillance technology by law enforcement. Two good pro-privacy bills, two bills that are going to help preserve our Fourth Amendment, our constitutional rights. So really pay attention to those two great bills we really needed people to support. And then on Tuesday, February 24th, the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee at 2 p.m., there's this very concerning bill, Senate Bill 51, the age attestation on computing devices. So this is that bill that basically says that a computer operating system has to know your age when you're setting it up and then really keep track of what your age is when you're dealing with other computer programs or online entities or whoever. Scary stuff. The government should not be mandating this kind of data collection of who and what we are using the internet. Bad news for sure. Of course, moving this in the direction of a digital ID. And then also on this week on Wednesday, February 25th, House Bill 1037, ban the government purchase of personal data from third party. Awesome bill. Highly support that one. Then on Thursday on the House Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources Committee, upon adjournment, it's House Bill 1033, expanding the Colorado Cottage Foods Act. That's a tamale bill. So Michael, any thoughts on these bills just at the outset before we go any further?
It's encouraging to see a lot of good bills out there. I know from week to week we cover uh, terrible bill from terrible bill to terrible bill. So it's nice to see some good legislation out there, especially some legislation that has support from the Democrats too. So it's nice to see good liberty legislation being promoted within the Gold Dome because of how rare it is to really see it. So I'm encouraged by this one. We only have one big bill without that we oppose. So I'm very happy about that. Consider with all things considered.
Yeah, there's some really good bills that we can all get behind from a pro-liberty perspective and show up and support, testify, get involved with these committee hearings. And folks, you can go to the General Assembly website. This is how easy it is. So leg.colorado.gov. That's the main page there. Really easy to get to. Just search Colorado Legislature online as well. If you go into legislators and just click where it says legislators here, it's actually going to take you a list of all the legislators, and you can actually even get their phone numbers for their offices and their emails off this, or you can download this member directory. So I recommend doing this every year. There's this member directory. I uploaded it here to Google Sheets. So this is what it looks like. But basically, they give you this great breakdown of all of the representatives, all the senators. Very easy to cut and paste, and then you have it saved on your computer. And of course, all the committees that they're in. So it's very important to look. You could take this document and then sort it out yourself to change it, which put each person in a committee differently, so you can do mass emails, or there's so much you can do with it. But that information is so easy to get. Download that legislator directory off the legislative website, and you can get the contact information and very quickly be able to send an email to all those committee members, make phone calls, and especially if this is important legislation, if you want to fight for the freedom of Colorado, then this is a good way to do it.
One thing to note about that list is legislators are constantly changing. For example, we recently saw Daphne Michelson Janae resign, so there is going to be a vacancy appointment for her. So that list is going to be updated. So constantly come back every month, every few weeks, if you know there has been a vacancy appointment, because that list is going to be evolving. It's just constantly changing due to the dynamic workings of the legislature and turnover that happens every single session. So just always be aware of what's going on, because you never know. There might be one individual who's on a committee one week, but the next week they're gone, or somebody else new. There might be a new individual filling that now filling that role that somebody else was once filling.
Definitely great points, Michael. And yeah, so folks, most important bills of the week. If you don't get anything else out of this live stream, those are some of the big bills to watch, pay attention to, and do what we can to try and get the good ones passed. I mean, do what we can, use our voice, and make some news about it. Speaking of news, we're going to talk about some of the big headlines of this previous week. Some interesting stuff happening at the state capitol. A lot of headlines, a lot of big stories. So some of the big ones, of course, one of the worst stories of this last week was House Bill 1144, the anti 3D printing bill, passed committee. It did get amended. It's not a good bill nonetheless. Bad bill. Need to get it defeated. So it passed out of the House committee, and we'll be keeping you updated about when this one's going to be hitting the floor. But this is one where you should definitely be talking to your legislators, no matter what party they are, and tell them how bad this bill is. And maybe even Jared Polis could veto it, but I don't know if he would. But bad news is the update from last week. This bill did pass in committee hearing, and not too surprising. Don't get me wrong. Another big story from this last week was an awesome transparency bill that both Michael and I testified on, House Bill 1056, the prescription drug transparency bill. It failed on a 2 to 10 vote. It was absolutely crazy, folks. This bill saw big pharma come out of the woodwork here with 60 lobbyists, big pharma lobbyists coming out and opposing this bill and doing everything they could to kill it. They do not want to see anybody challenge their profits on prescription medicine. And good for Representative DeGraff, who tried to get this bill passed, who got it introduced and fought really hard. He did so much for this bill. I mean, in terms of the article he wrote, getting it out to the public, he was really raising awareness as much as possible. And thankfully, we did have Representative Dan Woog support this bill as well. So good feather in his cap. And of course, Representative DeGraff. It was very disappointing to see that there were two Republicans who voted against this bill, who voted on the side of Big Pharma against the people. And that is Representatives Dusty Johnson and Carlos Barron. So very disappointed in Carlos Barron and Dusty Johnson for voting the wrong way. They voted with the Democrats on this one. But yeah, any thoughts on that one, Michael?
Yeah, simply put, I think the easiest way to describe this bill is that it was an attempt to eliminate fraud, and it was incredibly concerning to see the industry saying, the pharmaceutical industry speak out and say, no, we believe fraud makes people safer, so therefore we need to allow fraud to continue. When at the end of the day, it's just going to increase their what they're attempting to do is just increase their pocketbook, because you should not be allowed to lie to people. And all this bill was doing was demanding that pharmaceutical that PBMs do not lie to their customers. And yeah, so it was just very disappointing to see bipartisan support for killing this bill. And thank you to Dan Woog um, for voting for this legislation.
Definitely. Also, this last week we had news broke of a new ballot measure. I'm really excited about this. It does relate to the legislature, is why I'm bringing it up here. But a ballot measure that seeks to enshrine the right to know government affairs in the Colorado Constitution. This is awesome. So exciting, folks. And it's great. We got the Independence Institute working with Colorado Broadcasters Association, Colorado Public Radio, the ACLU, Colorado Common Cause, the League of Women Voters, Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition. So it's people on both the left and the right who are uniting to try and increase transparency in government, a fundamental right to know the affairs of what our governments are doing. And that is huge. So really exciting to see so many people working behind the scenes now get this filed, and now they need to get signatures. So if you're open to volunteering, I can definitely help connect you if you want to be a petition carrier and go out there and try and get signatures to get this on the ballot. We also had another ballot measure we'll talk about here shortly, but anything on this one, Michael, before we move on?
It's always weird when you have somebody like John Caldera teaming up with Kyle Clark. Very, very odd couple, but sometimes Kyle Clark does pull through and supports the right thing. So I'll take the wins when we can get them for Colorado, because um, there's very nefarious individuals within our legislature trying to constantly attack Cora, and this is going to help enshrine Cora as something that cannot be touched by our state legislature, as it's going to be enshrined in the state constitution. So, if you guys can find the time, I know we already had a set of three ballot measures that got a lot that were raising a lot of awareness and a lot of and were obtaining a lot of support. If you guys can help out with this one as well, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Definitely, definitely. And other news of the week, the Second Amendment Protection Act, House Bill 1021, was unfortunately killed. No surprise there. The Democrat majority hates our gun rights and wants to abolish the Second Amendment if they could, and that's no exaggeration, folks. So they killed House Bill 1021 to stop that bill from passing. So this is just, we're catching up on some of the news of this last week, folks. This was really interesting as well. So Jared Polis actually threatened to veto Senate Bill 18 because he didn't like the fact that there was a provision in there that was similar to what we saw in House Bill 1312 last year that got amended out. Let me read this here to you here. It says, quote, from the article, the measure also would have directed family court judges to take into account a parent's acceptance of a child's gender identity when determining parenting time. The provision was pulled from Senate Bill 18 after Polis threatened to veto the bill otherwise, according to Rep. Lorena Garcia, one of the bill's sponsors, and Z. Williams, one of the activists supporting the measure. The governor, quote, opposed the contradictory and troublesome family law provisions in the legislation, which were substantially the same as those he opposed last year. So, hey, Jared Polis got something right. Now, don't get me wrong. I wish he would have done more. But nonetheless, you got to give him kudos where kudos is due. And the fact that he got this pulled out of the bill would have, now this is already happening, folks, but this bill would have made it even worse, forcing judges to have to take into account a parent's acceptance of that child gender identity in order to determine parenting time and parental responsibilities. So glad this got removed from the bill. I think a lot of people are surprised to see that Jared Polis had them remove it from the bill, or else he was just going to veto the bill wholesale. But nonetheless, I mean, we kind of moved in the right direction. At the same time, though, it would have been better if Jared Polis just vetoed the entire bill. Now we're going to get still bad stuff in the bill, but the worst part taken out, I guess. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, first off, shout out. I just want to give a big shout out to last week's guest, Rep. Brandy Bradley, as well as Rep. Max Brooks, for taking their time to use one of their bills to um, support, introduce and support House Bill 1021. And when it comes to Senate Bill 18, this is basically the two sections that were removed from House Bill 1312 last year in committee and reintroduced. And again, I mean, our buddy Jared Polis did not like those two sections. He removed them then, and he still did not like them. I'm grateful that. Well, yes, I am grateful that he did demand that they amend this bill once more. Uh, I am as well disappointed that we are likely going to see this thing pass now because Jared Polis's wishes were granted. So I'd rather see the thing die altogether because at the end of the day, this bill is harmful to parental rights as well as kids.
Definitely, definitely. So interesting news of this last week. Also, one of the big news stories, and this is an ongoing story, is about this whole Colorado Opportunity Caucus. So 15 Democratic lawmakers are facing ethics complaints over a dark money veil retreat. That's the Opportunity Caucus retreat. They'll have their legal bills covered by taxpayers. The attorney will be paid $250 an hour. Your money, their defense, right? Because it's an ethics complaint within the state government. It's a legal fight involving legislators that are unfortunately able to use the taxpayer dime. So bad news there, but nonetheless, hey, if there's some accountability to push back against them, ultimately it's a win. But of course, a total waste of money that the state government, that our tax money is going to have to go to pay these attorneys $250 an hour just to defend these bad legislators. So horrible news there. But some of the best news we saw this last week was from Protect Kids Colorado, Aaron Lee. So many people out there, 3,000 volunteers across the state of Colorado getting petitions. Such exciting news. Over 508,000 petitions, over 500,000 petitions, unbelievable, for 3 ballot measures. Aaron Lee here says, grateful to the 3,300 plus Coloradans who care about protecting kids and work so hard to get it here. Thank you. Now we have to wait 30 days for the letter of sufficiency and pray. So amazing news to see this last week where they dropped off the petitions to the Secretary of State to get these on the ballot. I mean, absolutely phenomenal work to get 170,000 petitions on one of them, 164,000 on another, I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of work and efforts and excitement around these ballot measures, and so exciting. And thank you everybody out there. I see Bombshells in the chat. She was carrying petitions, and everybody else out there who was working so hard to get petitions and then get them notarized, and all the volunteer effort that went into this. It's so exciting to see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm really excited. I think that there is a glimmer of hope with both of these stories right here. Uh, the glimmer of hope when it comes to to the issue with the Democrats is the moderates are fighting the progressives, and the more we can get the moderates to fight the progressives, the more division we can see amongst the left, the greater chance we have in Colorado because it's not looking good on the right side of the aisle. So if we can see some chaos and some division sown by those legislators within their caucus, the better it's going to be for Colorado because they're going to be start fighting each other. I mean, there's a lot of issues they can fight each other on, particularly Israel and Palestine. That's a huge wedge between the moderates and the progressives. So the more we can allow those groups to fight each other, the more wins we can have in our current state. So very happy about that. Very happy that this is happening because I want to see the left kind of eat its own for a bit. And then just huge shout out, like you said, to Protect Kids Colorado and Erin Lee, her organization, Jennifer Say, Travis Morrell. We went to the launch part it's not a launch party, um, but the gathering that they had, the kickoff gathering that they had up in Windsor, it was absolutely fantastic. They had speakers from across the country. Aaron Friday came. We had James Lindsay come, absolutely phenomenal speakers, and it was awesome to see because that 10-day kickoff as well as the kickoff campaign really helped lay the groundwork for getting all three of these over that signature hurdle. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate all the hard work you did.
Yeah, phenomenal. Just absolutely inspiring work there. But let's jump in. We got about 10 minutes before Representative Keltie starts, but we got so many bills to cover this week. I'd love to just jump in and at least start talking about a couple of them. Does that sound good, Michael?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. So, on Monday, February 23rd, this is a very interesting bill, folks, and we want to give you all the information here. You probably haven't heard about this bill, House Bill 1011. Basically, it's going to make pet stores illegal, basically. Pet stores will no longer be able to sell cats and dogs. And don't get me wrong, there's been so much controversy over the years about the puppy mills and abuse of animals and this and that. And, my heart goes out. But nonetheless, this is not really what the government should be doing in my mind. This is not the proper role of government, is to make it illegal, basically, to ban pet stores. So, just a quick summary here. Under current law, pet store in Colorado is permitted to sell or offer for sale dogs or cats if they abide by certain requirements. This bill removes the existing permission so that beginning January 1st, 2027, a pet store is no longer permitted to sell, lease, I don't know who leases cats or dogs, offer to sell or lease, barter, auction, you can barter for a dog or a cat, auction, or otherwise transfer ownership of a dog or a cat. So literally, pet stores it'll be illegal to sell dogs and cats. Crazy. Now, nothing prohibits a pet store from providing space for the display of dogs and cats available for adoption if the pet store does not collect a fee from the display and if certain requirements are met. Wow. And then it goes in here, basically, you can't, it's really just going to be up to charities, up to animal shelters and pet rescue places to buy and sell animals. I mean, where are they going to get their, I mean, eventually you run out of them, I think, right? If you're only going through shelters and rescues, where's the new one's going to come from? So there's a couple exceptions here. Of course, the sale, transfer, adoption of an animal, including a law enforcement animal, to a governmental agency. So they could still sell dogs to the cops, but just not to us, the regular people. See, that's not good. That's not right. The sale, transfer, adoption of a guide, signal, or service dog. So, okay, if why are they making that carve out too? I mean, there's all these little carve outs here. The sale, transfer, adoption of a dog or a cat by an animal shelter. So there's the one thing that you can do. The sale or transfer of a dog or cat by the original breeder of the dog or cat. So if you're the original breeder, you're the one who bred them, then you can sell and transfer them, but you can't be a broker. So you have to be the one who bred them themselves. So what do? You sell you only if you raised them. The sale or transfer of a dog or cat by or on behalf of the bona fide owner that is not the original breeder of the dog or cat to a new owner, so long as the bona fide owner does not sell or transfer the dog or cat more than 3 instances per calendar year. This is insane. This is the same kind of licensing requirements they have for our motor vehicle dealerships, because I have a motor vehicle license, an auto license for a salesperson. And yeah, you can't, like, you can sell 3 cars a year and not have to be licensed in the state of Colorado. But now they're basically making that for dogs and cats. I mean, isn't this insane, folks? Like you can't sell, like who are they, who's tracking you? And they're going to bust you. They're like, you sold your fourth cat this year. That's illegal. Like you can't do that unless you're the actual breeder of them. I mean, this is not the proper role of government. This is going to destroy the pet market. And maybe that's their goal. Maybe they just totally want to get rid of pet ownership. I know they hate the idea that it's causing problems for the climate or what have you, but and the whole idea is that the government can get the dogs, but we can't get dogs. I don't know. This is crazy. What do you think, Michael?
No, I mean, yeah, they're going to make it way more expensive. I mean, they're causing supply issues, and it's going to be uh, way more difficult to afford pets. Also, they say that they're going to allow for the adoption of animals, but if a pet store is not going to be able to take a fee for the space, for giving up that space inside a pet store, why would they waste the time of hosting pets for adoption for individuals? It only makes sense for these places, these pet stores, where a lot of people who are very interested in pets are going to have the opportunity to find a pet. It's None of this makes sense unless you're trying to actively, as you're saying, get rid of not necessarily pet adoption, but um, owning pets in the first place, because pets are important. Pets are, I mean, they make every family a brighter family. I mean, I've got two dogs. We've got some other pets as well. Um, it's incredibly important for a family to be able to have pets if they want. I mean, we love our dogs. I don't know what I would do without our dogs. So, um, and my wife and my kid feel the same exact way. So, it would be incredibly frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating to see them think that they have the right to attack pet ownership in Colorado.
Yeah, crazy folks. If you like pets, you like dogs, I mean, this is a bill. You should definitely be reaching out to the bill sponsors. I mean, if you have time tonight, email Monica Duran, Karen McCormick, Robert Rodriguez, talk to the people in the House Agriculture and Water and Natural Resources Committee there, because they're the ones who are going to hear this bill on Monday at 1:30 p.m. But folks, this is why we get involved. This is why we pay attention, because this is something you're not really probably haven't heard about. But look at all these people on this committee, and they're going to vote to decide if they want to ban pet sales in Colorado. It's
Of course.
insane. This is not right. Go.
Of course, Karen McCormick is the chair of this committee as well. It's absolutely a ridiculous bill. Um, there's no need to be attacking pet ownership in Colorado. It's a very infuriating bill.
Absolutely horrible, folks. You can testify on this, but reach out even to the committee members ahead of time. But Monday, February 23rd at 1:30 p.m. I mean, is this the proper role of government? Is this the right idea of why are we even doing this? Like somebody in the chat says there, what's the even point of this? And yeah, totally agree. I mean, I guess we can see if they have a statement in the bet. Oh yeah, they declare that it's to go after puppy mills, of course, is their idea. Um, and that retail stores and brokers who are selling dogs to the public engage in deceptive business practices, harming consumers across the state who are falsely made to believe that they are purchasing healthy puppies. That is so stupid, so ridiculous. And folks, so then the policy of the state is going to end the sales of dogs in stores. That's what they're going to do. There's going to be they're like, okay, we're just going to end the legal sale of dogs and cats in stores. I mean, this is going to create, what are we going to have, black market dog sales and cat sales? I guess we're going to have to. I mean, this is so stupid. I mean, how can it not be defined as authoritarianism and not the proper role of government whatsoever? So folks, reach out to the bill sponsors, testify in committee, reach out to the committee members, but this is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Crazy stuff. But we are going to have Representative Keltie here join us, so I don't want to start talking about another bill yet, because we're about to have her join us. But let's go ahead and pull up her legislative page here before she jumps in. So Representative Keltie is from House District 16 in El Paso County, down in the Colorado Springs area, serves on the Business Affairs and Labor Committee as well as the Judiciary Committee. Representative Keltie does a phenomenal job. She's been a great legislator for Liberty these last couple years that she's been down there, these last 2 years. And some very interesting bills I'm interested to learn more about when she jumps on here. property insurance appraisal clause claim disputes, theft by contractor, the mandatory coverage hormone replacement therapy, offer pregnant person do not abort form, raising the age of voluntary relinquishment of a child. So very interesting legislation. But Representative Keltie, if you guys were here last year, she joined us and made some headlines. Made some headlines, if anybody remembers that. Representative Keltie was talking about, the need to maybe burn the whole place down because of how bad it is, and just the horrible atmosphere and energy coming out of the state capitol. And so she's awesome. It was so much fun talking to her last year. I'm really excited to see what she has to say. And, unfortunately, Representative Keltie's not running for re-election, but hey, maybe that means she'll say even more stuff about what's happening down there that that nobody else is willing to say, right? So I really hope so. Really excited to talk to her. She should be joining us momentarily. But yeah, do you remember that last year, Michael, when Representative Keltie, I think she was our last guest of last year's legislative session.
Yeah, that was absolutely wild. I mean, we never had any sort of controversy quite like that until the very last live stream that we do regarding the legislative session. And then uh, Colorado Times Recorder decides to give us a little bit of a bump and a little bit of publicity. So thank you, communists. I appreciate it. But yeah, I felt really bad for I felt really bad for Rep. Kelty on that because she was basically speaking the truth. It was the end of this legislative session, and she basically kind of stared into the eye of Sauron for if you mind my little Lord of the Rings um what the hell is the word? But yeah, my analogy. There we go. Um Yeah, I did not think that she said anything that bad. She saw all the issues that are going down at the Capitol. No matter what happens, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So I definitely empathized with her when she made the comments that she made. She was just talking about how terrible things are going down in the Colorado legislature. People are sick and people are sick and tired of it. And she went in there and she saw her first legislative session and um I fully back her. I fully back everything she said.
Definitely, we need more outspoken legislators. We have a lot of good Republicans down there, but we definitely need more of them. That's for sure. Representative Kelty is one of the few and the proud, and one of the fighters that we have, and we just need more of them. And we need to win some seats this year and get some more freedom fighters, liberty leaders down there elected in Denver, because yeah, obviously the state's going the wrong way. We talk about this every week about the horrible legislation that's introduced. I mean, they're going to ban pet sales in Colorado, folks. Like, it's going to be illegal for people to sell dogs and cats, and you can't sell more than three. It's like this crazy system. It's like North Korea or something. You know what I mean? Like, and it's something so simple and so basic, and it's like, oh, most people don't care. It's not a big deal, but it's just one thing after another, and it's just totally, before you know it, everything's controlled, everything's regulated, everything's banned, everything's forced on us, and it's like, no, no, stop it. We have to stop. So Representative Kelty is going to be joining us here in a minute, and then after that, we're going to get back to talking about bills of the week. There are so many important bills going through the state legislature this week, so stick around for that. And then at the very end, like we were saying, we're going to give you some updates on the important bills that maybe that aren't being heard this week, but some of the bills that maybe are most important to you or important to some of the specific issues that we have. So we'll be getting back into that shortly. But yeah, it's been crazy down at the state capitol this year. We were talking about how there's already been 440 bills, memorials, and resolutions introduced this year. It's crazy, folks. And we always wonder, it's an election year. There's a lot of opportunity for some of these Democrats to lose their seats. So were they going to tone things down? We talked about this on our first week of the live stream, and no, they have not toned things down. They're cranking it up to 11, and it's just worse than ever. And it's the most ridiculous, most egregious legislation we've ever seen here in Colorado, and it's rough stuff. It's absolutely rough stuff. But yeah, that's how it goes. But while we're waiting, maybe we should just jump back into some of the bills there. Just a thought. Because I know that there's a chance she might be a little bit late, so we might just jump back in here to the live stream. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, we can definitely give her time. I know she's got a lot on her plate right now.
Perfect. So the first big bill we talked about this week was this transfer of certain pet animals. I'm going to share all these bills in the chat. So if you're on YouTube watching this live, you're going to see them in there, and go in there and you can click on the bills and see that information for yourself. But let's go ahead and take a look at other bills being heard this week. A lot of crazy stuff for sure. Gosh, this House Finance Committee, we won't go into all the details on all of these bills, but we want to make sure you're aware of them. So really important bills being heard in the House Finance Committee on this Monday, February 23rd at 1:30 p.m. in the House Committee Room 112. So that's down there on the first floor. So let's just talk about them, and we'll talk a little bit about I really want to touch base on what Liberty Scorecard says about them too. They're such a wonderful resource. I'm going to share that in the chat as well, folks. You can go into every single bill that they're tracking this year and read what they say. They do a phenomenal job. But this is Extend Colorado Job Growth Incentive Tax Credit. Gosh, and of course you got a couple Republicans on the bill, Rick Taggart and Lisa Frizzell, and basically they're going to change how this tax credit, amending this Colorado Job Growth Incentive Tax Credit to authorize the commission to allow new tax credits through state income year 2034. But I want to read you what Liberty Scorecard says about this bill, because it's this kind of bill that not a lot of people pay attention to. But here's what Colorado Liberty Scorecard says. Here's their quote on this bill, their statement of why they oppose this bill. They say, extending this subsidy program through 2034 continues a state-administered credit that picks economic winners and losers by steering capital to politically favored firms. Even though it's a tax credit, it's still corporate welfare by another name, expanding the government's role in economic development rather than reducing business regulations or lowering across-the-board taxes. And so often we see this, folks, where these bills get introduced, and it's like, it sounds so great, it's a pro-business bill, but it's like certain businesses will get this tax credit, right? We see the government being like, oh, we like this business, but we don't like, but you're a little small mom and pop business, you're like a small family-owned business, you're not getting these tax credits. It's these huge companies. Like we just saw Palantir leave. I mean, how many tax credits did they get to even come to Colorado in the first place? Who knows, you know? But nonetheless, it's this idea of they're picking winners and choosers, and they're winners and losers. They're going to be a chooser and go through and do all of that. And it's not right. I mean, ultimately, this is not the proper role of government to be interfering in the market and say, yeah, let's give these people, we want this job market. And it's like, this is how you create distortions in the free market. But that's really all I wanted to say about this one. What do you think, Michael? You're muted there, Michael.
Oh,
Or
sorry
you're,
about that.
there you go.
No, I agree. I mean, we've had enough of this. 15 years ago, Colorado was considered a very great place to, start a business, grow a business. And as the Democrats have really taken over in Colorado, they've added regulation after regulation after regulation after regulation to the job market. And now we're stuck with one of the most regulated states in the entire country, and they're only getting started. So you're seeing job growth cripple. As you mentioned earlier, Palantir left, but even for Palantir to come here, they gave them a lot of kickbacks, and they tried to make them a winner. And my favorite thing about that is, well, yes, Palantir is a terrible company. They're a horrible company. In my opinion, one of the worst companies in the entire country. And in a way, I'm very happy to see them leave. But in another way, I'm happy to see them leave because of how shocked Jared Polis was. He did all that work to bring Palantir here, and then they just leave and they don't even tell him. That was the funniest part about all of this is the Democrats were absolutely shocked. They put all this work to bring Palantir in, and they just decide to leave because of the job market they've created. It's time for them to take their lessons. Are they going to? I don't think so. If anything, they're going to get pissed off and double down and do even worse and do even more damage to Coloradans, and particularly the Colorado economy through what they're going to try to push. But it's time for them to take a lesson and realize there's too many regulations, there's too much crap, there's too many attacks on our on Tabor. We need a full wholesale change within the way the Colorado government is run.
Definitely, definitely. Bad bill. I mean, picking winners and losers, definitely not the proper role of government. And Bombshell in the chat says, yeah, what about Costco and Loveland? The developer for the Costco and Loveland they're going to build now just got approved for all these handouts as corporate welfare, basically, where they're going to give them all these tax rebates. And absolutely not the proper role of government. Now, here's another bad bill, House Bill 1065, the Transit and Housing Investment Zones. Of course, some of the worst on this bill, Julian McCluskey, Stephen Woodrow, Dylan Roberts, Tony X, affects them. But the whole idea, folks, is that they want a top-down, centrally planned state where they have mass transit around high-density housing and mass transit corridors. That's their whole 15-minute city. So this bill allows local governments to apply for and create transit and housing investment zones that utilize state sales tax increment financing and income tax credits to support transit and housing projects. So it's just the central planning from our state government trying to basically say, hey, listen, we're going to redesign how these local communities should look. And, I like the fact that the revenue's down, don't get me wrong, but this bill creates this Transit Investment Area Act. Beginning in January 2027, a local government in partnership with a transit agency may apply for the Office of Economic Development and International Trade for approval of a transit investment area, creation of a transit investment authority, designation of a financing entity to receive, use, and disperse state sales tax increment financing revenue for eligible transit products. The bill also creates a new state income tax credit to support the development of affordable housing and transit and housing investment zones. So that's the whole idea, folks. They want to create these little 15-minute cities, mass high density housing around mass transit corridors, and they want to basically have everybody pay for it. And that's the problem with all these bills. They say they're trying to solve the housing issues, but ultimately, folks, it's central planning from our state government telling local communities how they should be set up, and that's a problem. That doesn't always work out right. It never works out right, in fact, and bad news. So, what do you think about this one, Michael?
Well, there's a whole load of issues with this bill, from the fact that Colorado has always been a home rule state. Your county, even with, let's say, for example, Amendment 64, which passed regulate the legal, which was the legalization of marijuana. There was still home rule. Home rule was still respected, where even if, while the fact that they legalized marijuana on a state level, if your county, a rural county, didn't like marijuana, they don't have to have they still had the choice of whether or not to add marijuana businesses, for example. They did not, and a lot of places did not add marijuana businesses as a part of their ordinances, etc., and that is still respected today. This has a preemption clause which wipes all of that away. So this is going to be mandated from the top down on everybody, regardless of whether or not this works best for these individual areas. It also adds another layer of government. For example, RTD. Well, this will be another step, another type of government on top of everybody else who has to deal with the other transit zones. So we're seeing transit zone after transit zone, quasi government after quasi government stacked on top of each other, and we're just absolutely crushing people with this type of heavy-handed regulation. I'm very, very concerned about how this is going to be zoned as well, because not what works for Denver does not work for some place like Brush, Colorado. So, very, very concerned with how this is going to affect, especially rural Coloradans.
Definitely, definitely. Bad news. Central planning, top down, diverting tax dollars to fund and to redesign how our cities are set up. Bad news, folks. This is the kind of legislation we should always be resisting for sure. Also, in this same committee is another interesting bill, the mobile home property taxation. Just wanted to bring this one up slightly because mobile homes got hit really hard this year with property taxes. Everybody got their property tax bills, and there was a massive exemption that expired. This kind of credit that expired just this last year, which is why property taxes are so much higher, but especially people who are in mobile homes. So just at least wanted to mention this because it's interesting to see how taxes are being used to kind of shape some of this, but it does a lot here basically. But basically increasing the property tax exemption threshold for mobile homes, so that they potentially don't have to pay as much taxes. So that's a good thing. So interesting stuff here, but yeah, really interesting to see how they make the carve out for mobile homes ultimately. And of course, part of the idea there is, these are people who are marginalized for the most part, and a certain segment of the community that maybe needs a little bit of I don't know, more protection in some way. Liberty Scorecard had a really interesting viewpoint on this one. They said property taxes fund essential local services like schools, fire protection, and infrastructure. Exempting a larger portion of property from taxation without reducing spending may simply shift the burden onto homeowners and businesses who remain fully taxable. Compassion should not come at the expense of fairness and fiscal balance. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective. I like the fact that anything that lowers taxes is a good thing. But ultimately, the whole idea here is they're going to have the state government backfill the taxes, from what I understand. So, it's like maybe you're low because we don't have any statewide property taxes here in Colorado, thanks to Tabor. Our Taxpayers Bill of Rights prevents that. But if the local governments are going to lose out on tax money because of this, then it's going to be the state government who's going to make up the difference, is how I understood it in the bill, if I'm not mistaken. So, of course, that, certain people subsidizing other people, and of course distorting the market that way. So not a crazy bill, not like the earth-shattering bill, but I thought it was interesting and just wanted to bring it up to people there. Any thoughts on this, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if we had lower property taxes uh, on a wholesale level, that would probably be best. Something that's simple, something that's clean. Uh, but I also understand where they're coming from on this one. I mean, it makes more sense than others. I can give them that, especially when it comes to it makes more sense than some of the other legislation that's been introduced when it comes to taxation in Colorado. Um, especially when you consider what the status quo was for the last few years. And then with this, with that exemption expiring, I could definitely see how that could cause some concerns for a lot of people. So, um, if this is going to kind of maintain status quo, I understand. And if we can have less people pay taxes, I get that too. So, um, yeah, I mean, I see both sides on this one.
Definitely, yeah, interesting stuff. So also in this committee, wanted to bring this one up. This is such an interesting committee tomorrow, House Finance. But is this tax exemptions for low income rental property development? Oh gosh, don't get me wrong, love property tax exemptions, but this is the whole idea, folks, is they want to basically make it so that there's more nonprofit housing providers. So you think these nonprofits are getting tax money for a lot of them are, right? Not all of them, but a lot of these nonprofits are getting grants, getting tax money to build these new low income housing and this and that, and especially in areas where maybe the local governments or the local people don't want them. And then they're going to expand this exemption to say, okay, if you're a nonprofit with these low income residential property, we're going to exempt you from a lot of the taxes. So like I said, ultimately, I love lowering taxes, but of course, these types of bills here, distort the market. Liberty Scorecard says this bill expands property tax exemptions for nonprofit rental housing, distorting the market and shifting the tax burden to other property owners. It rewards politically favored developers and erodes the tax base, undermining fiscal responsibility. Colorado should pursue broad-based tax relief and market-driven solutions, not carve-outs that expand government control over housing policy. So that's what you got to think when you think of this. I think that's such a great just a great couple sentences there describing the problems with this bill. And that's why Liberty Scorecard's so valuable. But the government's going to dictate which houses should be developed, which ones should be built, who gets the permission to build them where, and they just totally distort our state, our local communities. And this is top-down, centrally planned types of things that really change our makeup of our state and not necessarily in a good direction. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
No, I completely agree. This one is I think this one's kind of gross because you're using low income rental properties and affordability as an excuse to give your buddies a little bit of a handout because again, this is the Colorado legislature playing favorites. So I find it really gross.
Yeah, gross is the right word. I mean, picking and choosing who they want to build, where they want to build. But it's interesting, just in that one committee, folks, you can kind of see the big picture, right? Of how these people in our state government think that they have the power and the knowledge to totally redesign our entire state. You got the transit and housing investment zones, then they're helping out mobile homes, and they're helping out low-income rental properties owned by nonprofits. So they're really distorting the market, shifting things in a way that they think should be designed without actually addressing the real problems problems of why there's less affordability, of why, you know, people have trouble building homes here in Colorado because of all the red tape, because we need construction defect law reform, all the different things that way. And of course, some of the higher taxes and higher regulations that make it just so hard for homeowners to find a place here to live. So also on Monday in the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m. A lot of interesting bills here. This is an LSBA, so that's an LSBA is the Legislative Service Building, Room A. They got two rooms over there. I don't want to go too in depth on this one because there's so much to it, but House Bill 1113, modifications to elections. And folks, we're supposed to have a single subject rule here in Colorado. It's really supposed to be a bill that addresses one specific thing. And yeah, they're saying, well, the one thing is elections. So let's change everything about elections here in Colorado. But you can read through this bill. If you're at all in the election integrity movement, I wanted to make sure you are aware of this bill. If you're involved in political parties, in elections, and you really pay attention to that kind of stuff, election law, you really have to look at this bill because they're going to change so much. They're going to change about how vacancies work for congressional, for U.S. senators, which is going to be interesting because if Michael Bennet becomes the governor, there's going to be a vacancy there, and it's who's going to fill that, and that's going to be different than maybe a change in the law right now. So check that part out. Let's just look at that part here. Regarding vacancies in office, it requires the governor to appoint a person who is a member of the same political party as the former United States senator to fill the vacancy in that office, and clarifies that a person appointed to fill a partisan office serves only until the next general election, at which time the remainder of the vacant term, if any, is filled by election. So, you know, nothing too crazy there, but nonetheless, there's all these little changes that they do, even for minor parties, in terms of when their candidates have to be given to the Secretary of State. They change some of that timeline. This is just a big bill that changes so many little things about our elections. I really just want to make sure people are aware of it. And if you're involved in election integrity or paying attention to that kind of thing, this is a bill to look at. Any thoughts on this, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, there's some interesting stuff in this bill. Like, I mean, it's going to make it a little bit easier for employees to get it to a polling center, but um, there are a lot of concerns from an election integrity standpoint. It expands the list of acceptable IDs. It's going to compel colleges to provide certain pieces of election information. It's also going to, another issue that I have with this bill is, let's say, for example, there's some markings on a ballot, you're, and you have some issues with that ballot. It's going to make it easier. In the past, you had to cover up those markings so that way an individual would not be able to recognize that ballot. Like, let's say, for example, there was a Democrat on there, and a election judge might want to ensure that that ballot gets counted. That those markings are going to make it more identifiable for somebody to ensure that that gets counted, which can lead to certain biases. For example, when they are, how do I say this? Um, there it can allow for certain biases to help influence elections, especially in close elections. For example, our guest that's coming up soon, she won her election by 3 votes. So every vote absolutely matters. So I definitely don't want to see shenanigans uh, come into play when it comes to Colorado election integrity.
Yeah, there's so much to this bill, folks. Definitely pay attention. It also clarifies a person cannot be a candidate for more than one office to be voted on in the same election. Thought that was interesting. Increases the number of days before an election that drop boxes may accept ballots. Increases the number of days before an election that ballots must be mailed. So does that change the timeline of when the ballots need to be finalized in terms of who's on the ballot? Because right now there's a timeline where it's like if you want to withdraw your name from the ballot, it has to be in a certain date. Is that going to change as well? So there's so many different things in this bill having to do with election law. Just really want to get in front of people and make sure you were aware. Some of the other interesting bills being heard this week in this committee is House Bill 1104, the Credit Agency Voter Address Verification. I know, Michael, you were bringing up some awareness to this one. And don't get me wrong, like it's not a bad idea to try and have better election integrity and making sure that people who live here are actually living here. But let's just pull up the fiscal note, folks. So if you're looking at bills and it's very confusing and there's a lot of words there, sometimes it's better just to look at the fiscal note. If you click on recent fiscal note, Legislative Council staff kind of condenses the bill. They tell you about the money involved, which is always a huge important part, but nonetheless, basically this bill requires the Secretary of State to conduct an annual address verification of registered voters using a third-party credit bureau. So, under current law, the Secretary of State is required to conduct a monthly national change of address search for all voters that appear in the statewide voter registration list using a database administered by the United States Postal Service. The bill requires the Secretary of State to also conduct an annual change of address search for all registered voters by securely sending information to a third-party credit bureau for the address verification. County clerks are sent the information of any discrepancies found from the address search. Each clerk must review the information and take action as necessary to resolve the discrepancy in accordance with current law. So, of course, a lot of questions here. They're going to be sending all of our addresses or like sending information to credit bureaus to check to see. I mean, I don't know. There's some privacy concerns there, I think. What do you think about this one, Michael?
No, I love the idea of election integrity. I just don't think this is the right way to do it. I see the possibility of third-party credit bureaus possibly using this to use our voter. How do I want to say this? I could see them using this bill to possibly use this legislation in a way that's not necessarily conducive to um, Coloradans. I could see them possibly using this for their own services. I'm also concerned why credit agencies specifically would be the best route uh, for our um, for our Secretary of State. And at the end of the day, I think that it would be best if our Secretary of State just followed the existing laws. We don't see our current Secretary of State doing a good enough job of cleaning up the voter records as it is. So I would love to see them just focus more on doing what they can with what they have to actually clean up the voter records, and we wouldn't have as many issues with election integrity in Colorado.
Awesome, sir. Well said. Well, we got our special guest this evening. We have Representative Rebecca Keltie joining us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us this evening. There's so much happening at the legislature. We love having you on and hearing from you, but thank you so much for joining us. And I think you're still muted. It says you're muted on there.
There we go.
Awesome. Well, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. We were talking earlier about all the controversy that was caused on your last appearance and how much fun it was. And you said everything that we all already thought and nothing controversial from any of us. So I was like, when they said there was some controversial, I was like, what was it? There's nothing controversial about what Representative Keltie was saying because it is a bad place under the Gold Dome. And I'd love to hear your perspective on how are things going this year, I guess, to start off.
Well, I mean, then by everything is still dreadful. But we're working hard. We're fighting hard. I am seeing a little leeway in some of the bills that I'm running. So so far it's going okay with that. I've gotten positive feedback from it. But we're fighting, man. Some of the stuff that we're still seeing is just like, it's almost like the insanity never ends. It just never ends.
How are your expectations going into this legislation? Or excuse me. Yeah, first off, Rep Keltie, thanks for joining us again. My first question to you is, what were your expectations after having a season of craziness behind you? What were your expectations for this 2026 legislative session, and how has everything transpired in reality compared to what you expected everything to be like?
Well, honestly, I expect it to be almost exactly the same as last year. Just, no leeway. None of them are paying attention to what we're trying to do or work with us or anything like that. But I have found a couple legislators that, believe it or not, have kind of softened. And I have a couple actually on some of my bills, and where I thought there was no way I was going to get anyone on these bills. And that is actually different this year. So I don't know if it's because, I'm unable to run for the next, So I have some medical things I have to take care of. It killed me not to be able to run because I worked so hard, to get the seat back. But I'm until I have, I have to have surgery. So as soon as that's done, I'm going to treat Jill Hafley is the candidate that I actually had asked to run to take my spot. And I will treat that campaign just as if it's my own until I can't anymore. So, but anyways, I really thought it was going to be just as terrible as last year. And they still have some terrible bills coming through, like the prostitution bill. Like, what is that? They never, I always say, oh, you can't surprise me. That one surprised me. But I'm really hoping that I've got 5 strong bills that I would like to get through, and hopefully we can get some of it done. Some of them are working with us. I don't know why, but they are, and I'm appreciative of it. So.
That's awesome. Well, I'd love to learn about your bills this year. Very interesting. What about House Bill 1024? Maybe we start there. Raising the age of a voluntary relinquishment of a child. What is that about?
So it's called the Safe Haven Bill, and currently in I feel like this thing is like right in my face. But anyways, currently in the state of Colorado, a mother has only 72 hours after she's given birth to relinquish her baby if she doesn't want it. For whatever reason it is. It could be, whatever reason. And honestly, 72 hours is just not enough time. I mean, I can't even pick up carpet in 72 hours. So, so what I've talked to the Democrats on that. And so this bill, what this does is it allows the mother up to 30 days to relinquish the baby, no questions asked, no, just give us the baby and you're good, kind of thing. And this bill, though, also gives a way for a father, just because the mother doesn't want the baby, it also gives the father a pathway to actually get his child if he wants it. So it's a good bill. So
what were some of the changes between last year's bill and this year's bill? I know that you mentioned the father. I'm very curious why you decided to add the father in. I'm also kind of curious what the new timeline is. If the existing law is only 72 hours, what is the new timeline for somebody to relinquish their child?
Sure. The new timeline is 30 days. So they have up to, and actually that's a national standard as well. Colorado is one of the few states that only had still 72 hours on there. And other states have done all the, the hard work and this research and everything. And they found that 30 days was a good window to allow a mother to make that kind of decision. It's a hard decision. It's something, a rush decision is never usually a good decision. So I added the father in there because I don't believe it's in there now. So that's something I think, dads don't always get the choice too. You know what I mean? So it's their kid, there's their baby as well. So, I think that if just because a mother doesn't want the baby, we've got some really great dads out there, and let them, have their baby if they want it. And then what's different? I would say last year I ran it with the baby box. So in some states, a Safe Haven also has these baby boxes, so the mother can just put the baby in the box and it shuts, and an alarm goes off, and someone's there right away to pick up the baby. But that was a contentious area. They weren't sure about the boxes. It just they just didn't like it. So I took it out, but it just didn't pass the mark last year. So this year we got it through, and actually one of the Democrats that was on Health and Human Services last year is actually on the bill with me this year. So that helped a lot.
Awesome. Great to see bipartisan support for this bill. And I was really excited to see it get out of committee too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it passed committee. It's on the House floor right now. So good stuff to see. I mean, this bill looks like it's going to pass. And so good job with this one for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. Protect the kids, give them a better chance here. I'm really curious, and I was really hoping to testify on 1085, but the committee hearing went so long this last week, I just wasn't able to make it. But this very interested on this bill, and we've already had a couple eye rolls in the comments of saying pregnant person, but I know that's the statutory language you got to use, unfortunately. But can you tell us a little bit about House Bill 1085, the offer pregnant person do not abort form?
Yeah, I know. And that wasn't up to me. They snuck that in there. And then when I found out about it, it was too late. So, but a good thing is that title won't even be in it. So I'm actually doing a strike below on that bill, rewriting it. And instead of calling it do not, abort form, It's actually a pregnancy advance directive, which is really what it is. It's like a DNR, you know what I mean, and do not resuscitate, which is an advance directive. This is a pregnancy advance directive, and it allows a mom, if she's ever in it, because last year they passed a bill that said that if a mother's ever in a situation where she cannot speak for herself, she's incapacitated for whatever reason, a doctor can then make the decision to abort her baby without her knowledge or without her consent. And so I got a problem with that. So this bill says, well, okay, well, how about the doctor knows what her consent is, and if her consent is save my baby, then that's what the advance directive does. It says, okay, I'm the mom. I want to choose whether if I have to choose between I live or my baby lives. I mean, I know as a mom, I would choose my child every single time without question. And so this allows her wishes to actually be on record in her medical record saying what she wants to do. So she didn't have to do it. It's not, by force or anything like that. But if that's what she wants to do, then let her do it. It's her choice.
Democrats love to call themselves pro-choice.
It's pro-choice.
Exactly. So I'm very, very curious, what is the pushback against your bill in committee? Because you are giving them a pro-choice bill, but it does kind of question some abortion procedures, and Democrats absolutely love to campaign in Colorado on abortion. It's part of the reason that the Democrats were able to successfully turn Colorado from forever red to blue. So I'm kind of curious what you're hearing as some of the criticisms and pushback on this pro-choice bill.
There wasn't any. Well, I shouldn't say there was one person that out of everyone that showed up to testify, there was only one person that testified that she was against it. And honestly, I can't even remember the reason. It wasn't even like it didn't make any sense. So it was just because she just wanted to, I guess. I'm not even sure. But everyone else who testified was for it. I mean, I had mental health people in there. I had OBGYNs. I had doctors. I had, obstetric nurses. I had everybody on this bill saying how this is actually important. So, I guess the only pushback was some of the language in there, which is why I'm doing a strike below. There was more medical terms and medical language that I didn't have in there and that I should have. And I had Dr. Pirelli, he came, and actually I was thinking, I'm getting my bills mixed up. On this one, we didn't have OBGYNs. We had Dr. Pirelli and we had another doctor and a bunch of moms, because that's who I stakeholdered on this one. I didn't stakeholder the so much the medical professionals. I stakeholdered mothers. Like, what as a mom would you want? And by overwhelmingly, they were like, yes, we need something like this. And I would always choose my baby. And that's her choice. That's her wish. So Dr. Pirelli brought some language, and I liked the language so much so that I'm like, okay, we're going to marry this bill. So the strike below will include the new language and, include the same stuff, but it'll be a new and improved, better bill. And when I spoke to one of the Democrats that's actually on the committee, she says, if you add in, this one little thing that if a doctor doesn't give it to someone, he's not held liable for if something happens, you know what I mean? And so I put that language in there, and she said she'll be on it. So I just need, in that committee, I only need 2 Democrats to sign on for it. And I think I have it. So that'll be another good one that hopefully passes. So yeah. And then my property theft bill is another big one. So hopefully that one makes it through as well.
Perfect. Yeah. You want to talk about the property theft? Is that House Bill 1254? Is that 1245? Excuse me. The theft by contractor. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah. So that one. So as we know, in Colorado, we've got a big issue with the police. Actually, helped me with the Colorado Springs Police. Helped me with this one. Yeah. I'm sorry. The Placer County Sheriff's helped me with this one. And what it is we've got contractors, shady contractors, are really making it hard for the good contractors, but shady contractors coming in, and let's say Grandma Ethel, she needs a new roof, and her roof is, $50,000. But, John over here comes to Grandma Ethel and says, hey, Grandma Ethel, I will do your roof for 15 grand, but you got to pay me up front. And it's all her money. She doesn't have anything else. So she gives John her $15,000 and never sees him again. And it's happening all over Colorado. And so the sheriffs actually asked me, please run this bill. And because there's nothing they can do about it. They're getting calls on this every single day. And so, but there's no criminality to it. It's theft. I don't care what you say. That is theft. So now what I'm doing is with this bill, I'm putting criminality on there so the police can actually get involved. So Grandma Ethel can call the police instead of saying, oh, it's a civil court matter. You have to go after John, who now you can't even find, you know what I mean? So, and she's, you know, and they're targeting senior citizens more than anyone else. And that's a shame. And veterans as well. So, and I always protect my veterans. So, and my senior citizens, everybody else too. But, you know, I'm kind of biased a little bit.
I'm very curious about this. Is it just the fact that it was a civil infraction, not a criminal infraction, that handicapped the police from actually being able to do something about about this crime?
100%. Yep. Yeah. So now with this bill, they'll actually be able to help her out. They'll be able to do something. They'll treat it as a crime. Can
you kind of give us details of why a civil infraction will limit the power of the police on preventing theft?
Well, it's not an infraction. It's a civil matter. So they would have to sue John. They have to go through the courts, small claims courts or whatever. The police, since there's no criminality on it, they can't do anything. You know, their hands are tied. They're like, well, sorry, Grandma Ethel, you'll have to take John to court. Well, this way, they can actually get involved and help her out and treat this as what it is, and it's theft. So, and not only that, you know, I have friends who are good contractors, and it's hurting them because people don't trust them now. They're you know, they've lost their trust and between the good guys and the bad guys. So this is a good separator. And I'll tell you what, if you're going to start, you know, stealing from my senior citizens and my people in Colorado, we're going to come after you.
Good, as we should. So that's great. Yeah, it looks like the bill amends the Colorado Revised statute definition there of theft. So no, that's great. Good to see. We do have a question from the chat here. Somebody's asking, I'd love to get your opinion on it, Representative Keltie. It says, what are your thoughts on the Democratic Socialists of America, or Democratic Socialists of America's Denver chapter in Colorado politics? I mean, you see it, you're down there. We have card-carrying members of socialist organization. I mean, just basically communists. I mean, what kind of role do they play in our state legislature?
A lot. For me, you know, I see there's a few members in there that I'm not sure why they're not. I'm not sure why they keep getting elected. I'm not sure why they're not investigated. You know, we've got a couple that, you know, they started out with these little nonprofits before they ran for office, and then once they got into office, you know, their $25,000 or $30,000 that their nonprofit would get in donations became millions, and they're actually siphoning money off of their own nonprofits. Lorena Garcia is one of them, and that we have noticed that, you know, how did this just happen overnight? And then she's on the payroll. Her family's all on the payroll. I mean, this is all out in the you can see it in the public. So, you know, it's stuff like that, you know, we really need to have an investigation of these people. You know, not just, you know, her, but, you know, Jenna Griswold and, you know, I mean, all these people I went after everybody this session. I went after the AG Weiser. I went after Griswold. She actually had my aide. There was a Instagram that apparently I didn't know I had it. So, and my aide would put stuff on there, you know, and she put one of the videos that I did, my little spiel about Griswold and how she ran away from me in the SMART committee. She literally ran from me. Like, she was so afraid of me, she took off and out of the SMART meeting, or I call them not so smart meetings. And my aide reposted my spiel about that, and Jenna Griswold had it shut down within a week. And I only had $100 on there, but I have my Twitter, or not Twitter, what's it called now? X. I have my X now, and my Facebook stuff, so I don't care. So, but it's funny how she's extremely afraid of me. So, and I took Weiser to the woodshed. I just let him have it about that software that has the software that they're using in Colorado that had they use for parole. So there's a software they use that gives you the risk factor, whether someone can go out on parole or not, so whether they're low risk or high risk and that kind of stuff. It had a 98% error rate. Yeah, that's what I said. That's exactly what I had. And so I had a 90. So I'm like, what is this? And, and Weiser is the captain of his ship. And I told him that. I said, you are the captain of your ship. This all falls under you. And I said, your ship is sinking. And so, and this was in the smart meeting. I sat maybe 10 feet from him. And I just let him have it. I just told him that the people who are being killed from this, the blood is on his hands. I have the whole video of it. And I asked him, two questions at the end, and my last question to him is, why shouldn't he be fired for this? Because he's letting people go out in the street, to maim and murder and hurt people. And that's on him. That's completely on him. So, but they've stopped using the software now, for now, and they're reassessing everything. So that's a good thing. And the Department of Corrections, they can only do what they've got, so.
What can we, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
You're good. What can we as citizens do? Because these are we share a lot of these frustrations. As just regular citizens, I watch what's going on with Lorena Garcia's little nonprofits. I watch what's happening, especially when it comes to nonprofits, the NGOs, all the money that was just given to people who are given to organizations that did unconstitutional things or things the government couldn't do. Or like Lorena Garcia, for example, bringing in all these millions of dollars of government funds once she's a legislator into her nonprofit. And then we're stuck here watching them get away with it year after year after year. What can we do? Because I see this as one of the big reasons as to why so many people in Colorado are losing hope and wanting to just get out, because they see a sinking ship that's really not doing anything to course correct or basically save itself.
Well, they've been doing it for a while. So, and believe it or not, they're actually grooming you to give up. They're grooming you to where you say, what's it worth? Why am I doing this? I'm just not going to vote. I'm not going to get involved anymore. That's what they want. So we're literally falling into the hands of the game that they're playing. And we're losing. We're losing by everything. And if we don't turn seats around this next election, we're screwed. It's going to be bad. And there's a few of them in there that have kind of either come to Jesus moment or whatever it is, but they're actually becoming a little more moderate, and which is a good thing. But they're going to be target number one for these Democrat socialists that are coming after them. You'll see them starting to get primaried in their own, usually they don't primary each other, but they are now. If you look and see, there's several of them that are now being primaried. And it's by their own people. So, and it's sad. Maybe we should start trying to find in the blue areas. We keep trying to put a square peg in a round hole. You've got blue areas, you've got Democrat areas in Colorado. Get over it. That's just the way it is. Denver's always going to be blue. Boulder's always going to be blue. Those areas are always going to be that way. So how about, as Republicans, we do things smarter instead of harder, and start putting moderate and supporting moderate Kennedy-style Democrats in those areas, because you're not going to get a Republican. You're just banging your head against the wall. How about we start helping them help us and putting in Democrats in those strongholds that are actually going to be able to work with us rather than fight and just target us all the time. We need to be smarter in how we're how we're doing our elections. So, and then in I know in the Republican areas, quit fighting with each other. You know what I mean? You don't have to like each other. Get over your feelings. You know what I mean? Get over it. We need to get Republicans in there who can actually, stand by the Constitution, stand by the, Republican principles. And sorry for the libertarians out there, but it just is what it is. But, I love those guys too. Anyone who has conservative values, that's what we need. And if we get more of those people, whether they have a D or an R behind their name, it just is what it is. But we have to be smarter how we're doing this. We are at war. We are at war, and we're not fighting the best war we can. We're not fighting. We need to be smart and use a lot of strategy. There's, instead of just, Republicans go around with a hammer and they just try to hammer everything, and not everything's a nail. Sometimes it's, it's screw. You got a screw gun, I don't know. That's just me. I'll talk forever. So you have to tell me to shut up.
No, well said. I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important to have that strategic mindset and really look at new ways to do things, right? If the old way doesn't work, let's try something a little bit different here. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if we get more pro-liberty legislation or at least tone down some of the bad authoritarian leftist stuff, we're moving in the right direction, right? By helping some of the moderates maybe. But I'm very curious, Representative Keltie, because we hear about this infighting. Of course, we're all very well aware of the Republican Party, but I've heard a lot about the Democrat Party, and I'm sure you see some of it on a daily basis there. We have the big fight now with the Opportunity Caucus and this Main Street people and this and that. And, it's like there's two factions at least. I'm sure there's more, but even in the state legislature of Democrats who are really going after each other. And they're introducing bills to like go after them about this Opportunity Caucus, Vail Retreat, and this and that. And so I'm very curious, where do you see some of the infighting on the Democratic side in the state capitol? And then maybe do you have any tips on how we can help exploit that? Are there any specific issues we can push as a wedge to draw them even further apart so that they're doing more of the fighting against each other?
I have to be honest with you, I haven't seen quite as much because they don't do it out in public. So the ones who see it the most are more the leadership, because they're in on these meetings and stuff like that. I do know that there is kind of a tear between the Democrat Senate and House. I have seen some of that and some yelling sometimes of some of the things that they're doing, but I really don't see a lot of it. And maybe it's partially because I'm so laser focused on the judiciary and committee and the business and labor committee and the bills and that kind of stuff. So I'm very work focused, and a lot of the drama I just kind of just put out of my head. You know what I mean? I just, in the military, you had to do the same thing, so I guess maybe I spent too much. 21 years in the military was too long. I don't know, but I just don't pay attention to drama. I don't do feelings. So sometimes I don't even notice it. So
interesting question in the chat. Do you think if people understood the coded language socialists speak, it would be more functional to communicate with constituents the gravity of the situation?
Yes. And that's actually what I have been focusing on as I'm out door knocking and trying to, like I said, I have a candidate that I'm putting in my place, Jill Hafley, and I'm already out door knocking for her. And I go independence, I go everywhere. And I use that language. So I've spent the last year studying them and studying how they interact and studying how they speak. And I have used that language to communicate and get across. And I think that's why I'm able to get on these bills that I'm running Democrats, because I think I'm able to get them to understand that we have some things in common. We really, truly do. And if we can focus on that, and I can tailor it and get them to focus on that, then I think that's how you get things through.
Very interesting. Yeah, such important conversations about how do we reach to constituents? How do we get the information out there? Because so often I feel like the average public doesn't understand as the question posed, the gravity of the situation or what's actually happening in our state government. And that's why we do this every week, to try and inform people. Like this bill where they're going to make it ban pet sales, like pet stores can't sell dogs and cats anymore. Like there's just so many little things that the media doesn't even report on that could affect somebody's livelihood or change somebody's life, and people have no idea. So I think that's the first step, is how do we get it out there, But Representative Keltie, I'm really curious too. You have this property insurance appraisal clause claim disputes. Anything we should know about that bill, House Bill 1247?
Yeah, that's actually a really good bill. So in the state of Colorado, we've got a lot of things like hail damage and stuff like that. And what I've seen and I've had constituents come to me about is they're putting in claims. They pay all their life, they pay last 30 years on the insurance. They never had to make a claim. Now they have to make a claim. And the insurance companies are basically just saying, oh, we don't see anything wrong, or that wasn't hail damage, or that wasn't, and they come up with every excuse in the book. They make it very difficult, especially for senior citizens, to be able to get these claims done for their roof or whatever damage they have. So this bill says, look, if you deny my claim, I can go to 3 independent contractors and I can get 3 different claims. And if they all 3 say it was done by, we'll just use hail as an example. If it was done by hail, then it was done by hail, and by God, insurance company, you're going to pay out. You're going to fix my roof or fix whatever damage was done, because it's 3 to 1. So that's the premise of the bill. So hopefully that one will get through. I know they're not going to be happy with me about it, but I have to do things that help my constituents and my people. And, I support small businesses. I support all businesses, but I want to make sure that everyone is getting a fair shake. And I think this bill allows that to happen. So
You're talking about affordability, making things cheaper. I mean, for example, you have this bill, there's a claim that's been placed. Insurance pushes back. You want to make things more affordable for people because the insurance is trying to refute that claim, which will absolutely explode which will make it less affordable for that individual if they have to repair their roof, for example, from a hail claim, but they're not able to get that claim accepted. What other areas in Colorado are you seeing, especially this legislative session from the Democrats, where they are pushing things or killing pieces of legislation that are actually making it less affordable for Coloradans to live?
I'm trying to think of what I've seen so far. We've just gotten started, so I haven't seen too much. That they're going after like the apartment complexes or builders inside. And I know that the bill for builders, Rebecca, I'm sorry, I've had a heck of a weekend. The one for the construction builders, to allow them to do condos and stuff like that, that's in the works right now. They've realized they made an error on that because it's still not helping. And so I believe that's actually coming back, and that actually may help make that more affordable. I'm trying to think if they've done anything yet that has caused things to be more expensive. Not yet. I don't think so. I can't remember. I'm sure it's going to pop in my head as soon as we get off of here. I'll be like laying down going, oh, there's one. But I can't remember one right now, just off the top of my head. So.
Hey, as of this week, there's been 440 bills introduced, so it's really difficult to remember anything.
I haven't seen them yet, so they have to make it. They get introduced and then they go to committee, and then they come out of committee and go on. There was one this week. There was okay, the 3D print bill. Let's talk about that one. Let's talk about what that one's going to do to Colorado. That was going to be disastrous. I sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, if you remember the bill on the backflow devices that they did, that basically, that was tragic. And so they had to go back and fix it because they realized how much damage that they did with it, which is always the case. And so this 3D print bill is, they're saying that even if you have a 3D print file on your computer that you purchased for a gun or for to 3D print a gun, just having the file is going to make you a criminal. So, but they don't separate that from people who do cosplay. It could be a gun component. So, but they don't define what a component is. So if I'm a cosplay person and they want to be as realistic as possible, there's over 100,000 people in Colorado that do cosplay and go to the Comic-Con and all that kind of stuff. I'm a nerd. And so, so what that does is, like, if you have these files on your computer, you've broken the law. If you print anything with these, like you want something for your cosplay gun to make it look realistic and that, you're breaking the law. If you have a couple of the colleges here in Colorado don't have FFLs, but they do ballistic research and gun research and stuff like that, they're breaking the law. The military will be breaking the law. Like everyone will be breaking Colorado law. And I'm like, do you not see what you're doing? And they don't care. They don't care. They just pass it.
I have that language up. Digital instructions means digital code in the form of computer-aided design files or other code or instructions stored and displayed in electronic format as a digital model. Couldn't that also describe video games?
Yes. And a lot of these video games, and I named several of them off that the people play, you can download a file from there for like to 3D print one of the guns in the game. Something like that. I mean, it's just something that innocent. You have kids doing it. You have, and they're like, well, and they don't even define what intent is. They don't even define that. And it's like, it is a disastrous bill. You just watch and see. And, I said, to myself, I'm like, maybe we just let them burn it down, right? Let them do it. Just let them see what happens when they run these disastrous bills. And I'm telling you what, you want to make 100,000 cosplay people mad at you, go ahead. That's what's going to happen. And you got the video gamers, and you have the, just everybody. It's bad bill, but they passed it through committee.
Horrible stuff. Well,
Yeah.
Representative Keltie, really appreciate you taking the time to join us. We'll let you go here, but any final thoughts, any final words for people? What do we need to know that hasn't been talked about yet?
Well, caucus and assembly in El Paso County is coming up March 4th, or the caucus is March 4th. If no one knows what the caucus is where you go to your local school or a local area and in your little precinct, and you actually become delegates, and you can go to the assembly and choose who you want on the ballot for the primary. So it's a way to just, everyone has to get involved. The Republicans have to get off their, this is a podcast, right? So I can say what I want. They can get off your ass and get out there and not just vote, for heaven's sakes. The midterm is when the Democrats sneak in there. That's when they start taking things over. So we have to stop that. We have to get involved in the caucus. We have to get involved in the assembly and start taking back Colorado. Because I'm telling you, I know that Republicans want to be left alone. I get it. I totally get it, man. But they're not going to leave you alone. They're not going to leave your family alone. They're not going to leave your life alone. They're not going to leave your money alone. They're not going to leave your Constitution. They're going to destroy it. And so the only way that we can fight back is to actually get involved. And by God, just come off your couches and help us get the state back, because we can do it, but it takes all of them. The 22 of us are just the mouths up there, but the action, the warriors are you guys. You are the warriors. So come on.
Awesome. Great stuff there. Any final questions, Michael, or anything final for Representative Keltie before we let her get back to her Sunday evening?
The last question I have is, how can we help finish out this 2026 legislative session strong? What's the one thing that you are seeing as lack the most, at least not necessarily from the Republican legislature or the party itself, but what is the biggest thing that we as citizens can do to help you out?
I have seen less and less testifiers, and I tell you what, when you guys go to testify, you only get 2 minutes to speak. And that's not, some of these bills, especially the 2A bills, it's just not enough. So how about when you go to testify, come find one of us Republican legislators that's on that committee who's going to be there, and send us a question. Give us a question to ask you while you're testifying. Here's my name. This is the question I want you to ask me, because then if we ask you a question, you get as long as you need to answer it. It's a way to get you to be able to get more of the fight out there rather than just 2 minutes. And then if you forget to do that, at the end of your testimony, before your 2 minutes are up, say, Well, gee, I would really like to say more, but because I'm out of time, I really hope someone asks me a question about whatever, and then us Republicans will pick up on that and we'll be like, oh, and then we can then ask you as a testifier or as a witness, how about you mentioned me to ask you this question. I'm asking you that question now, and now you can talk. So it's just to be able to get you guys to talk more, because the more that you guys talk is the less that they can talk. So it's a strategy.
Awesome. Great stuff. Love it. That's such an amazing idea and really appreciate you, Representative Keltie. Appreciate everything you do. Keep us updated. If there's anything else going on, anything you need to know, please, we'll share your bills and try and get people out there for those because you got some great legislation this year. And just thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and appear tonight. And thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome. I do work hard. Well, we all do. And I'm here. I'm not just an HD16 rep. I'm a Colorado representative. So if you guys don't like your reps, I'll be your rep. I'll adopt you. So, and I appreciate you, Brandon, for everything that both of you, I really appreciate everything that you guys do. You're getting the word out there. And that is such a battle that we are overcoming. And I appreciate it because it's needed. It's very much needed. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you. And I'm sure we'll see you down at the Capitol or in committee. But take care and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sir. See ya.
Thanks, Rep Keltie.
Awesome. Awesome. What a great Liberty warrior we have. And people take her up on that. If you're in a committee where Representative Keltie's on there, or any of the other Republicans for that matter, but specifically with Representative Keltie, I mean, she's on the Judiciary Committee, which we've seen a lot of bills go through this year, but you can show up there. You can be asking her to ask you some questions. I don't think she'd mind that whatsoever. So she's in the Business Affairs and Labor Committee in the House and the House Judiciary Committee. So show up, send her a question ahead of time and any of the Republicans there. And yeah, you get more than the 2 minutes. I think that's phenomenal and really good stuff. Any thoughts on that, Michael, before we get back to talking about some of the bills being heard this week?
No, I absolutely love that she was willing to try to work to give people more time. It's critical that people are able to have their voice heard in testimony. I mean, I consider speaking and going to testify on different pieces of legislation more important than even a vote, and your vote is very important. I mean, for example, Rep Keltie, she won her election by only 3 votes. So imagine if she didn't win her election, we'd still have we'd be under another 2 years of Stephanie Vigil right now, and we know the legislation she produced, and that was an absolute nightmare. So I love that she is in office, and if it's that important for you to vote, think about how important it is for you to go down and speak, testify, because you have more than just a little piece of a little dot to basically color in. You actually have the ability to use your words, make your voice heard, and have the opportunity to change somebody's mind during that hearing. So please get out there and vote. And I absolutely love what she's doing. She's just a very genuine person, and it's fantastic to see her in the legislature for these 2 years.
Yeah, Representative Keltie has been awesome. Glad to hear she's still going to be in fighting and helping, even though she's not running again due to the medical issues. But let's jump back into the bills of the week, folks. Don't go anywhere. We have so much to talk to you about. So many important bills. We can kind of finish talking about. I guess we're done talking about House Bill 1104, the credit agency voter address verification. That's where we left off. But if you're interested, folks, sometimes you can go listen to these committee hearings. These committee hearings are all live streamed. So if this is an issue that's important to you, if you want to listen tomorrow, 1:30 p.m., and it's recorded. So if you're working tomorrow and you get home from work, you can jump on, listen to the committee hearing, watch it, see what happened, learn more about the bill. But folks, we have to be the leaders. We are the leaders to make our state free. So show up, get involved, and become informed, become educated. So that way, when you are a leader in your own community, showing up at a caucus or assembly or showing up at a city council or a neighborhood meeting or a political meeting, you know these bills, you know what's happening. This is a good way for you to become a leader, especially if you have plans to run for office. I know several of the people watching this are probably planning on running for office. So, this is a good way to do it. Any thoughts on this one, Michael, before we jump back into the rest of the week? You're muted.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I've pretty much said everything I need to say on this one. Yeah, I just wish they would go a different way about trying to clean up the records. For example, Senator Zamora Wilson, I think, had a better proposal than this.
No, I'm muted. Perfect, perfect. So yeah, interesting bills. This whole House State Civic Military and Veterans Affairs Committee is going to be so interesting tomorrow, this coming Monday. Just briefly, and we're just going to fly through a lot of these folks because it is getting late, but thought this one was super interesting. County mail ballot signature verification requirements. And Chris Richardson, you know, a good Republican, I think that'd be a good bill. Seeing Amy Paschal on the bill is also very interesting. So you can check this one out. But basically, this bill requires a county clerk and recorder to use a team of bipartisan election judges rather than a single election judge to review mail ballots for the purpose of signature verification. So the idea here is we're going to have more open transparency, more people looking at verifying signatures, and hopefully making it more secure that way. So this seems like a good bill, and you got a Democrat on it. So I think there's a good opportunity here. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
No, I agree. I think this, what I was talking about earlier when it comes to election judges being biased, I think this bill is a good opportunity to reduce some of that bias. So I hope this one passes. And unfortunately, we don't see a senator on here. I'd love to see either a Democrat or Republican senator carry this through into the House, into the Senate.
Definitely. So a lot of interesting bills. This one's super interesting too. Requirements for campaign consultants. I know Liberty Scorecard does not like this bill because it's adding a whole new regulatory structure, and there's already a lot of laws that would deal with fraud. But it's interesting. These people definitely seem to have a bone to pick with certain campaign consultants, and that's why they're getting this bill out there. Um, the bill imposes certain requirements on persons engaged in campaign consulting services, which are professional services to promote the election, retention, recall, or defeat of a candidate. Campaign consultants and consulting firms are not allowed to knowingly represent an interest adverse to their client without first obtaining the written consent of the client after full disclosure. So that limits their ability to work on different campaigns. And that's what's interesting. What is the interest adverse to their client? You know, what could that mean? Provide campaign consulting services in support of opposing candidates in the same election without first obtaining the written consent of both candidates after full disclosure. I'm sure that rarely happens, but maybe it does. Disclose to provide material benefit to an opposing candidate in the same election, confidential information that relates to a candidate on behalf of whom the consultant or consulting firm provided campaign consulting services, and that was gained in the course of the campaign consulting for that candidate. An aggrieved person may file a civil suit alleging a violation of these requirements. So, you know, I don't know. I don't like this idea really because you're just making all these new rules and tightening things up. And, you know, don't get me wrong, campaigns and politics is a dirty business. So I understand the concerns there. But for one, the people supporting this bill is a big red flag. For two, the idea that they're going to be meddling in all of this, there's going to be some unintended consequences and some bad things. So just interesting stuff. If anybody out there wants to learn more about it, I'm going to share the bill link in the chat here. Any other thoughts on this one, Michael?
Uh, Not too many. I'm kind of curious what the background of this bill is and why these three legislators decided to bring it. Three Democrats. Uh, I know that I know that consultants have been very huge in the rise of the Democratic Party, so I'm kind of curious why they decided to suddenly attack consultants after um, they they really helped campaigns in Colorado for such a long time on the left side of the aisle.
Definitely interesting stuff for sure. Also being heard in this committee is the voter transparency and ballot measures. This is House Bill 1084. I think this is a bad bill. So, you know, Michael Fields, who was mentioned earlier in the chat in Advanced Colorado, they've been really doing a lot of good work in terms of getting some ballot measures for Colorado voters to basically have an input in our government because our state legislature has been so terrible. So they've been using our voting rights that we have as citizens, our ballot access laws, to get stuff on the ballot. Now, this bill, definitely, the whole idea in my mind is to muck with that, is to really try and stifle the ability of citizens to present good legislation. Ultimately, just really quickly here, the bill requires that the title board include specific language in the ballot title for citizen-initiated measures that increase state expenditures without a dedicated source of funding or offsetting reductions in other expenditures. If a ballot measure increases state expenditures without identifying a source for the revenue or specifying reductions in public services or programs, the ballot title must include language identifying the top 3 areas of state expenditures that will be reduced if the measure passes. The additional language is required for any measure that increases state costs, except for minimal or administrative costs, as shown in the fiscal summary prepared by the title board for Legislative Council staff. Liberty Scorecard had a good takedown of this bill, I thought. They are such a great organization. They say, quote, "This bill weaponizes the ballot title to steer voters using speculative, politically loaded claims about which top 3 spending areas would be cut. That invites gamemanship by fiscal staff and the title board, empowers insiders over citizens, and chills grassroots initiatives with stronger, scarier titles that read like advocacy." Because if all of a sudden there's a bill that's like, oh, we're gonna, give law enforcement more resources, and then it's going to be like, well, we need to put in there that the resources are going to possibly come from schools and healthcare for old people or something like that. And so basically they're trying to rig the ballot measures ultimately is what my thought is, or they're trying to force people to say, who people are putting the ballot measures together, that they have to decide where the funding's coming from, which oftentimes could be out of the capabilities of the people who are putting these ballot measures together, right? So bad bill for sure. They're trying to stifle and stymie our ability as citizens to get stuff on the ballot, and that's a bad thing ultimately. Any thoughts, Michael?
I think it's alarming how much bias can be used by the title board. We already have a lot of issues with title board already in Colorado, so I could just imagine how this law could possibly be abused against the citizens of the state.
Definitely bad news, folks, but we're only on Monday. We're going to keep flying through here. So many important bills being heard this week. Senate Judiciary Committee on Monday, February 23rd at 1:30 p.m. Two very, very interesting bills. Two great bills, I would even say, folks. These are some of the bills we really wanted to highlight tonight. Senate Bill 2670, ban government access from historical location information database. And you got Senator Linda Zamora Wilson, incredible senator, doing a phenomenal job on there with Democrats. Surprising, right? You don't usually see this combination together. Of course, you got Kenny, the brand new guy, Yarazoke, who's a card-carrying socialist, and little Judy up here from Boulder. A lot of bad news there, but nonetheless, this bill prohibits a government entity from accessing a database that reveals an individual's or vehicle's historical location information, subject to certain exceptions. The bill prohibits a government entity from sharing historical location information with third parties or government agencies outside their jurisdiction, subject to certain exceptions, and makes historical location information not a public record for the purpose of the Colorado Open Records Act, CORA. The bill requires a government entity that collects historical location information to adopt a policy to maintain compliance with the provisions of the regulatory scheme. An enforcement action is created for the Attorney General to enforce the provisions of this bill. Historical location information obtained in violation of the prohibitions of the bill are inadmissible in trial. So interesting stuff. I still have a lot of questions about what this would mean exactly. You know what I mean? But I don't like the idea of basically all these state and local governments having access to databases saying where we are located. I can't help but think of the surveillance state that's being built all around us right now, and all this information that the state government and all these little local governments might be collecting about who we are, where we live, and spying on us. So to say that they can't really access that information ultimately is a good thing. I don't like that it removes it from CORA, but at the same time, if we're protecting people's privacy as individuals, maybe that makes sense. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. I mean, I even understand the core provision because I mean, what private citizens are doing should not necessarily be a part of Cora unless there's like a warrant obtained, for example. If you need to get a warrant, I can absolutely understand because you're going to be going through a government process, and that should absolutely be Cora. But when it comes to just regular citizens who have done nothing wrong, I could definitely see that being a a possible due process violation. So, and being unconstitutional. So, I'm a big fan of this bill. Like you're saying, I find it interesting that some of these characters are working together. I mean, it feels gross supporting a bill that Yarazoka is on, but I mean, if it's a good bill, it's a good bill, and it doesn't matter who's on it. So I really hope that this bill passes, and with with 3 Democrats on it, I mean, there's a very good chance of this thing getting passed, especially when you can say it's a bipartisan bill. So really hoping this one succeeds.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people watching Break the Chains if you're still on here, and other people who are concerned about the surveillance state and just this total police state that seems to be built around surveilling us and tracking us and all the government databases and the cameras everywhere and then this and that. This is an important bill. So folks, this committee tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. is going to have also the use of surveillance technology by law enforcement. Really excited for this one as well in the same committee. Definitely encourage people to show up for this one, Senate Bill 71. So you got 70 and 71. And this is Senator Linda Zamora Wilson. This is the one she's getting a lot of pushback from DAs, from law enforcement on. Basically, this bill would establish the Surveillance Accountability and Freedom Insured Act, the SAFE Act. On or after July 1st, 2027, the SAFE Act requires a law enforcement agency to use surveillance technology only for lawful purposes directly related to public safety or for an active investigation. If a law enforcement agency uses surveillance technology to collect surveillance data, the law enforcement agency must comply with certain requirements related to the collection, storage, sharing, and destruction of the data. They must ensure that facial recognition systems are used after a warrant, only used after a warrant is obtained, or in exigent circumstances when there is an imminent threat to public safety. Traffic cameras and automated license plate readers must only be used in public spaces and for specific enforcement purposes, such as traffic violations or identifying stolen vehicles. And drone cameras are operated in compliance with Federal Aviation Administration regulations. So it's a good bill. There's a lot to it, folks, but basically, there's a lot of us, me included, who have concerns about what's going on with technology in terms of all these cameras, drones, everything that's built around us, especially the monitoring of our internet and going after trying to clamp down on social media we see from a lot of these legislative efforts. So this is a good bill, ultimately a good bill. I really hope to see people testifying in support of this one in the Senate Judiciary Committee at 1:30 p.m. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I completely agree. Another great bill. We do have a problem in our country when it comes to privacy and surveillance. There are currently a lot of Fourth Amendment violations that are incredibly unconstitutional right now. Flock is a major threat, and I think that this would be a major step in the right direction if we get this bill to pass. So if you guys have the opportunity to get down to the Capitol tomorrow, please support it.
Definitely do remote, reach out to the Senate Judiciary Committee members, but two good bills. I hope they both get passed. House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday. So now we're on Tuesday. Three bills, and we'll go quickly through these just because how late it is here. But House Judiciary, we got House Bill 1108, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation access to the federal fingerprint search service. So basically, folks, if you get fingerprinted for any type of licensing here in Colorado, Anthony Hartsook and Janice Rich want to send your fingerprints off to the FBI to be constantly maintained for the rest of your life and just put you in a database, a federal government database of everybody who has fingerprints, including our concealed weapon permit holders. And yeah, bad news, ultimately, bad stuff, folks. A lot of pushback on this one against these two Republicans for being on this bad bill because it does affect gun owners. It does affect any of us here in Colorado. And yeah, bad bill. Hope it fails. It'll be very interesting to see. I really hope people show up and testify against this one.
This is a bill that our friends over at RMGO really did a lot of pushback on. They've called out particularly the Republican legislators on this. There's a very interesting conversation between RMGO and Janice Rich that was online where Janice Rich decided to let everyone know that Colorado Bureau of Investigation was not mentioned anywhere in this article was in this bill whatsoever. But what do you see on here? The first three words of the first words of this bill are titled Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and that is precisely what they pointed out in response to Senator Rich. So very, very disappointing. We've seen Rep Hartsook double down on this bill. Not only did he send out a response to all the pushback that he was getting, but then he once again doubled down. So very, very concerning. I'm hoping that we can at least see some amendments or something on this bill. That being said, I still think this is a terrible bill all the way around. I'm very concerned that this one's going to pass. So if we can get some sort of veto on this one, I think that would be absolutely phenomenal. Let's see what we can do to really push back against this. And if you guys have the opportunity, get down to the Capitol on Tuesday and testify.
Definitely reach out to those House Judiciary members, and that's Representative Keltie's on that one. So if you want to have her ask you some questions, definitely reach out. But very bad bill, very concerning. Hate the idea of a federal government database with all of our information. Just very quickly, another bill being heard in that committee. This Alex Valdez guy is an absolute joke. You should follow him on X and see his unhinged rants. He doesn't really get talked about very much, but nonetheless, he does a lot of bad stuff. But basically, he wants to give courts the authority to make determinations for the care and custody of pet animals. So like just like your kid, in a divorce proceeding, he wants to make that for pets and this and that. I just there's not much worth talking about this bill, but it's just like gosh, just the things these people do and all these new regulatory structures and stuff. Bad news there. But yeah, other bad bills here. I mean, we could talk briefly. House Bill 1101, the criminal offenses related to critical infrastructure metals. So people have been stealing copper and stuff, out of RTD rail lines and that kind of stuff, this quote unquote critical infrastructure. So this is basically turning people who own junk stores or pawn shops or this or that into agents of the state, having to track who's bringing these metals in and turn them into enforcers. That's the bad part about this bill. So bad bill here, of course, Liberty Scorecard says, quote, we already have laws against theft. This bill goes further by turning private businesses into enforcement agents, which is not the proper role of government in a free society. So don't get me wrong. It's a bad idea that people are stealing these metals and then trying to go sell them. But, trying to go after the owners of these companies and say they have to be now tracking who's bringing these in and keep records and get all their information to law enforcement and turn them into these agents of the state for this is just beyond the scope of what government should do. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I think it's absolutely absurd. Now, on top of them taking your records, they're demanding a photo if you ask for money to be paid in cash. Where is that? Um, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you need they need to take a picture of every single individual who gets paid out for everything that they sent to the junkyard, for example. I find that absolutely insane. But there's also a pattern that I'm noticing within Colorado. There are other bills, particularly when it comes to gun control legislation, where they are demanding that gun stores track every single purchase. So we're seeing a pattern here where they're forcing businesses to basically act as if they are some sort of third party uh, censorship and privacy tracking or anti-privacy tracking um, group because the government can't necessarily create these forms of tracking. So if you guys can get down there, if you're already going to be down there Tuesday, sign up to testify against that bill as well.
Yeah, lots of interesting bills on Tuesday in the House Judiciary Committee, including House Bill 1047, another bill going after landlords and property owners, making it harder for them. You have to have all this extra information for landlords and just make it more difficult. Won't go into the details, but wanted to bring this up. So if people out there are property owners, look at House Bill 1047 there from Junie Joseph. Bad bill for sure. The war on property owners and renters and landlords continues unabated there at our state government. So perfect, folks. Let's move on here to Tuesday as well. This is the age attestation on computing devices. Very concerning bill, Senate Bill 51. Two bills being heard in that committee, but this is the one we wanted to bring up. Basically forcing, let's look at the fiscal note here and see what this says. Beginning on January 1st, 2028, the bill requires operating system providers to collect a user's birth date or age during account setup and generate an age range indicator that can be shared with applications. Providers must make this age signal available to application developers through a standardized real-time technical interface while limiting the information shared to only what is necessary and prohibiting use or disclosure for unrelated purposes. So basically the idea is they want to track how old you are when you're using your device, and it's one step closer to digital ID. Then you have the Attorney General going after companies who are not keeping track of your age when you're using these software platforms. So I think it's a bad news, folks. It's a bad bill, and this is very concerning. It's a continuation of this attack on our ability to even use technology. I mean, they want to go out, they're going after 3D printers, they're going after social media, they're going after rideshare companies, they're going after these computing companies. It's just bad news all around, folks. Any thoughts, Michael?
I think you pretty much summed it up on this one. Yeah, they're basically one thing I will say about this bill is they are trying. The overall goal is to force everybody to use ID to even use the internet. And if you're forced to use to verify your age, what's going to happen? You're going to have to use an ID to verify your age eventually. So this is a step down that direction. So if you guys can get down there to fight this bill or testify remotely, this is another opportunity.
And this is one Jared Polis might even veto. I would not be surprised. So it'd be interesting. Pay attention to this one, folks, if this is something you care about. If you're in care about technological freedom and just freedom generally, this is an important bill to pay attention to. Even if you don't testify, I mean, testify, please, but at least listen to the committee hearing and see what's going on and understand the discussion around this bill. That's half the battle, is knowing what's actually going on there. So also on Tuesday, the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, two interesting bills. A great bill here from Senator Mark Baisley, and then another bill on voter registration there. So this bill is another, let's see here, registry in Colorado Department of Education for school personnel. So right now there's a huge problem where somebody can get fired from one school for maybe being inappropriate around kids, to put it lightly, and then they go get a job at another school. And this is a serious issue, and we've seen a lot of these people end up getting fired and then popping up in another school somewhere else. So Senate Bill 55, the registry in Colorado Department of Education, would create a registry in the Department of Education for school personnel who have been found to violate the school district's conduct and discipline code of their employee contract. So the idea here is, before somebody goes to work in another school, they can look back and say, okay, well, did they get fired? Did they violate some sort of conduct? What was the reason here? And hopefully it's a way to keep predators out of our schools. We need more help doing that for sure. So good bill being heard Tuesday in the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. It's great to see Mark Baisley in his last year there, because he's running for U.S. Senate, having a good fight. And yeah, hope this one makes it. What do you think, Michael?
I hope this one makes it too. Baisley represents Colorado, or sorry, Jefferson County, Colorado. And as we all know, one of, if not the worst school district in the entire country is Jefferson County, Colorado. And it's because of, one, all the crazy agenda nonsense that they push, and B, all of the horrible acts that are almost basically covered up by the school administration and the Board of Education itself. So, very, very concerning. There's a lot of very concerning stuff happening in Jeffco's schools. So he's seeing it firsthand, and this is definitely a step in the right direction to fight a lot of the garbage that's happening, within Jeffco's schools. So I hope this one passes. I don't have a ton of hope for it, but I would love for this one to pass if possible.
Definitely good bill, folks. Reach out to the committee members. This is the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee on Tuesday, February 24th. Another one that is pretty interesting is this modifications to voter registration. We have Senator Linda Zamora Wilson quickly becoming one of the Liberty leaders down there. Senate Bill 58, modifications to voter registration. Basically, it modifies the automatic voter registration process by replacing the default registration or pre-registration of a person who applies for a driver's license or identification card as an unaffiliated voter with a pending registration or pre-registration status, pending status. Only a person who has affirmatively chosen to be an unaffiliated voter is registered or pre-registered as such. The pending status applies to a potential voter whose intent to register or pre-register, whose party affiliation is unknown or pending due to the need for further information or failure to respond. A pending voter registration or pre-registration record created through existing processes may be finalized if the person affirms their intent to register or pre-register, provides their desired party affiliation or identification as unaffiliated, and self-affirms their qualifications in the form required for all registrations to be complete. If a notice seeking such information is returned as undeliverable within 20 days, the pending registration or pre-registration is canceled. So that's good. We're basically tightening up our voter rolls there. After 20 days, an undeliverable pending registration or pre-registration is marked inactive. If a notice is not returned at all, or a person's response is incomplete, their pending registration or pre-registration is marked inactive. If a person subsequently votes in an election, their inactive pending registration or pre-registration becomes an active voter registration record. So if people are registered who are inactive don't get a ballot in the mail, so this is good because it might tighten up our voter rolls quite a bit. A county clerk and recorder may, in their discretion, provide notice of an inactive pending registration or pre-registration record and further attempt to finalize the pending registration or pre-registration. The bill also adds a requirement for county clerk and recorders to mark their voter registration as inactive if they fail to vote in 2 consecutive general elections held in even numbered years. So I think this is a good bill. Ultimately, we got to tighten up our voter rolls. It's a very interesting way to do it, where they say like you're just not automatically an unaffiliated voter. You basically are a pending, and then you have that choice to make within 20 days. And if you don't, then you're not active anymore. But you can affirmatively choose to be unaffiliated, but they don't automatically put you in that box. So very interesting stuff, very clever, I think, and I think it's a good bill. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. I mean, the Colorado legislature has a hard time cleaning up our elections, particularly the Secretary of State. I would love to see our voter. This would automatically allow for the voter rolls to be cleaned up, and it would be very little work on behalf of the Secretary of State. So I definitely think this is a way to do it because it's going to force automatic cleanup of the voter rolls. So. Within 2 cycles from now, even if they do nothing, if this were to pass, we would see much better voter. We would see a much more accurate description of Colorado voter rolls.
Definitely. So those are 2 very good bills on Tuesday. And then also, let's jump over to Wednesday, the electrical generation and distribution resiliency. So being heard in the House Energy and Environment Committee here upon adjournment in the Old State Library on Wednesday, the 25th. So this bill is from one of our favorites here, Representative Ken DeGraff. This bill creates the Colorado Electric Grid Resiliency Task Force to study an issue of grid resiliency and to make recommendations to the governor and the General Assembly. The task force is 18 members. So right now we have huge electrical problems, of course, and oftentimes it's ideology all about carbon, which is ridiculous, which is taking us back to the Stone Age. But Representative DeGraff is identifying the real problem, and that's we need a resilient power grid. That should be the focus, is making sure we have power, that they're not shutting down the power every time the wind blows, and that we actually have power to handle what the grid requires. So it's a good bill. I think it's important, and I think it kind of cuts through a lot of the green agenda garbage to get to the real core of what's important about our electrical system. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. I mean, I I think it's interesting that he is asking for 18 members on this task force. I'd love to ask him why sometime. Um, and but at the same time, I also understand that this is going to be a monumental task. So the work will have to be spread out amongst a lot of hands. So I'm guessing he recognizes what's happening in Colorado. So if we're going to really if we're going to take the challenge head on, we're going to need a lot of hands on deck, would be my assumption. Um, but when it comes to the bill itself, I definitely I love this bill. We need to do something about energy in Colorado. I would say that energy is the biggest question mark in Colorado coming up over the next 4 years, because energy is becoming more and more becoming less and less affordable. As on top of that, all the green energy demands are collapsing in on Coloradans, and they are trying to move up these mandates, and it's going to become even less and less affordable. And that also means there's going to be less and less supply of energy for Coloradans. And what's going to happen is we're starting to see very soon California style brownouts. And do not be surprised this summer when it's incredibly hot and your power shuts off. We already saw it. We saw it almost happen last year for a day or two, and I would not be surprised if we actually see California style brownouts from Excel and other companies within Colorado.
Definitely. It's very concerning where we're going from an electrical standpoint, from a technology standpoint, and this is a good bill to address that. Also, Wednesday in the House Health and Human Services Committee, 2 interesting bills being heard. There's the Offer Pregnant Person Do Not Abort form. That is for action only. They already had discussion on that bill this last week. So Representative Keltie is going to do her amendment to strike below, which is basically to remove all the language from the bill and replace it with updated language that is going to be more successful. So for people keeping track, that's going to be, this Wednesday, February 25th. The other bill I wanted to bring up, won't go into it too much, but Senate Bill 2632. promoting immunization access. This is one that's been fast tracked through the legislature, is over now in a House committee. And there's a lot of bad news with this bill, folks. A lot of bad stuff with it, and definitely look into it. We don't have time necessarily to cover it all right now, but it's being heard Wednesday. I know the vaccine issue is important to a lot of people. This bill does a lot, and from what I've read, I believe it's Colorado Health Choice Alliance that's really been leading the effort on this bill and showing how bad this bill is. There's a lot of bad stuff in there, so definitely check that out. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
Yeah, very, very concerning, particularly if there's one thing I would ask you guys to look at is the addition of vaccine mandates. Um, Anybody who lived through COVID who understood the horrors of what happened. Vaccine, not necessarily mandates. I apologize. Vaccine immunity was one of the critical reasons for why we had so many issues in our country, especially when it comes to the efficacy of the vaccines themselves and potential health issues. So please, if you have the opportunity, look into this bill. It's very, very concerning. I know that there's a lot of people in Colorado who really care about medical freedom and the ability to choose what's best for them. This bill is going to strip away a lot of that for Coloradans. So please, um, take a few minutes and read this bill if you don't have the opportunity to.
Yeah, and I was able to pull up from Colorado Health Choice Alliance the email. They say, quote, the most egregious part of the bill is removing liability from a consumer product. Drugs that cause disability and death should have liability and compensation, including vaccines. This bill was not constituent driven from the people of Colorado, asking legislators to remove vaccine liability and make taxpayers responsible for medical bills for adverse reactions or loss of employment due to disability. The bill sponsors did not engage with any stakeholders who stand to be harmed per the Administrative Procedures Act. Pharma wrote this bill and profits from this bill. So that's what they're saying. It creates a state shield for liability for CDC non-recommended vaccines. So the state of Colorado has not been happy, of course, with the CDC and their recent changes. So they're basically, the state of Colorado is coming in and saying, no, we're going to say all these people can use all these vaccines that are not necessarily CDC approved, and we're actually going to guarantee the no liability for them because of that. So bad news there. People can get harmed and hurt, and it's going to be up to the taxpayers to cover that cost if there's any type of litigation. So bad bill for many reasons, but I definitely wanted to at least get that out there for people to understand what's a little bit at stake. So perfect. That's what we got in Wednesday in the House Health and Human Services Committee. Also on Wednesday, folks, the House Judiciary Committee. There's so much going on this week. This is at 1:30 p.m. in House Committee Room 107. Two interesting bills. Just briefly, fairness and transparency in municipal court. And of course, that always sounds like such a good thing, right? Who doesn't want transparency? I'm a big advocate of transparency. We'd love fairness, but that's what they do, right? They name these bills certain things. Here's what Liberty Scorecard says. They oppose this bill because, quote, the bill is costly, one-size-fits-all mandate on small towns. It forces municipal courts to provide remote public access, rapid in-custody hearings, and counsel at every jail-eligible appearance without funding. The comply or lose jail authority ultimatum will push cities to raise fees and taxes or abandon local courts, centralizing justice and bureaucracy in Denver. So this is another top-down program coming from our state government trying to tell local municipalities what they can and can't do, all under the guise of trying to defend people, which is noble on its surface, but ultimately it's going to cause some problems for local communities who won't be able to have municipal courts anymore, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Any thoughts here, Michael?
No, I agree. I mean, on the surface, I like this bill, but when you really dig down, I think it causes a lot more. It causes a lot more problems for communities than it's going to actually than solve the solutions it's intended to solve. So I'm not going to support a bill like this at this time. I think if there's a new legislation at a later date that could possibly tackle the issue in a way that's going to be more economical for small towns and municipalities in these particularly rural regions, then let's have a conversation then. But as the way it's currently presented, I can't support the bill.
And then another great bill, 1037, being heard in the same committee. This is a bill with Ken DeGraff and 2 Democrats on it that ban the government purchase of personal data from a third party. So this is a workaround. Right now, our government is working around the Fourth Amendment. They can get our data just by buying it from private companies. This bill prohibits law enforcement and other government entities from purchasing or otherwise obtaining it for anything of value certain personal data from third parties. Law enforcement agencies and other government entities are also prohibited from sharing individuals' personal data between themselves. Exceptions are created for obtaining personal data, including after obtaining a judicial warrant, subpoena, or court order when an individual consents to sharing their data, and in the case of an emergency involving a threat to the person's life or physical safety. The bill creates a private cause of action for an individual who has their personal data obtained or shared in violation of the prohibitions of this bill. Personal data obtained or shared is excluded from trial and other court proceedings subject to certain exceptions. So a good bill. Right now our government's just, they don't need a warrant because they can just buy the data. This says they can't do that. They need a warrant. They need to be able to go through due process and say why they need our information and get our personal data. So great bill. Really hope people testify. This is one of the key bills this week. I'm really encouraging people to get involved in and have a voice. Reach out to the House Judiciary Committee. Again, we got Representative Keltie who's going to be on that committee. So if you have any questions, you want extra time to talk, this Wednesday, February 25th, very important bill there. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I'd love to see everybody. I'd love to see as many people as possible get down here again for this bill. One thing that's important to point out that this does recognize recognize an individual's rights, constitutional rights, while also balancing the important need for law enforcement to do its job. So it still has the opportunity to search individual people, basically do its proper investigation while at the same time respecting individuals' rights. So I really hope that this bill can pass and we can get some people down to the Capitol for this one. But I also understand there's a lot of bills this week. We've had 440 bills introduced this legislative session so far. So we can't get down to all of them. There's a lot of bills I can't testify on that I wish I could. So if you can't get down there, please do.
Yeah, very important bill. This is one to definitely mark on your calendar and pay attention to, folks. And then on Thursday, expanding the Colorado Cottage Foods Act in the House Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources Committee. So upon adjournment of the House Committee Room 107, House Bill 1033, that's the Tamale Act from Representative Ryan Gonzalez. And he does have the Majority Leader in the House, Monica Duran, on the bill. So this bill is expected to pass. Jared Polis supports it. So this is a bill that will marginally increase our freedom in terms of being able to buy food that needs to be prepared hot or requires refrigeration, requires temperature control. So it's good. We'll have more choices as consumers, give entrepreneurs more opportunity to sell their food. And yeah, small increase in freedom. So good stuff here. It'll be very interesting to see county health departments and restaurant organizations come out and testify against this bill. Very interesting to see this committee hearing, and I really hope people can testify in support of this bill. Michael, what do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, food freedom is important for Colorado. I hope that we could definitely support if we can support this bill, that's a good thing. The more food freedom we have, the better. And I'm glad this bill has been introduced, and I'm really hoping this thing passes. And with this bill being expected to pass, I'm going to be happy about this. Unfortunately, my problem is we don't have a senator as a prime sponsor yet. So hopefully we can get a senator as a prime sponsor for this bill.
Definitely testify in favor of that one, folks. Good bill. There's also a ridiculous bill being heard in that committee, 1132, to support pollinators, because that's the state government's job, is to do that. And then let's jump over to Thursday in the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. Just real quick on this one. This is a great bill. Senator Kirkmeyer, of course, is running for governor, and this is one of her signature pieces of legislation. So upon adjournment of the state Senate, on Thursday, the bill modifies the requirement that a taxpayer add the amount of any overtime compensation excluded or deducted from a taxpayer's federal gross income tax back to the taxpayer's federal taxable income for purposes of calculating state income tax liability to apply only in the 2026 income tax years. So this is a tax cut. You got Representative Caldwell, minority leader in the House there. So good bill, basically to end the tax on overtime. Colorado last year decoupled overtime from federal government tax policy, meaning that Colorado is one of the few states that actually does tax our overtime money that people make now. It's an egregious assault on working Coloradans, and this bill would rectify that. So, good bill. Really hope people show up in support of this one. House Senate Bill 56. What do you think, Michael?
I think this is one I'd love to see a Democrat on here. I don't think we will, and I think this is definitely one to pay attention to, so that way once the 2026 general election comes around, we can we can discuss this with our friends and neighbors and just say, hey, this is what the Democrats are doing to explicitly make it less affordable for Coloradans to make a living.
Definitely, definitely. It's absolutely shameful how Democrats in our state government are taxing overtime of hardworking Coloradans. So important bill being heard this Thursday in the old Supreme Court in the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. People, so much important legislation going through the Capitol this week. We really hope you get involved, use your voice, reach out to committee members. Folks, this video is on YouTube. You can share it with people. You can go back and watch certain parts, take clips, but let's get active. We have so much an opportunity here in Colorado to be engaged with our government. We're wrapping it up here. We still got some time. We got our little lightning round coming up here, going through the bills we are tracking. So this is important legislation. I updated this all today, so it's as accurate and up to date as it can be, of bills that are going through the state legislature this year, including bills that have already been killed, but we think important bills that are worth tracking throughout the entire session, even if they're not being heard this week. So you ready, Michael, for our lightning round here?
Let's get into it.
All right, perfect. I'll let you kick it off here. Go for it.
We just talked about this one, House Bill 1033, the reintroduction of the Tamale Act, spanning the Colorado Cottage Foods Acts, to be heard Thursday, February 26th.
Another good bill, repeal retail delivery fees. No date yet from Representative Woog and Senator Byron Pelton. Good bill. We got to repeal those delivery fees. We'll keep you up to date on when that one's going to be heard.
House Bill 1037, ban government purchase of personal data from third party. We talked about this one a little bit ago. To be heard Wednesday, February 25th in the House Judiciary at 1:30 p.m.
Another good bill, the back to school sales tax holiday. This was supposed to be heard this last week, but ended up getting moved to Monday, March 2nd. Hopefully that's a good sign that they're working on the bill to come up with some way to get it passed. But March 2nd in the House Finance Committee, we'll let you know about this one again next week if it's not at the same time.
House Bill 22 challenges meeting 2030 emissions reduction goals. We are still looking for a date on this bill to be heard in committee.
Another good bill, House Bill 1138 from Representative Woog and Representative Democrats Espinoza. Retail Theft Prevention Program. March 10th in House Judiciary is the scheduled time.
House Bill 1140, local government impact hearings, passed the first committee and it's on to the House floor. So happy to see a bill with two Republican sponsors make it beyond committee. And
another good bill here. This is the limitation on gender transition procedure claims. This is from Representative Ken DeGraff, House Bill 1128, scheduled on Monday, March 9th in the House State Civic and Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. We know this bill is going to be killed, but important we get it out there.
House Bill 1105 discussed adoption information with pregnant persons. We talked about this one with Rep. Keltie a little while ago. This is going to be heard on March 4th next week in the House Health and Human Services Committee at 1:30 p.m.
1072, this is from Representative Scott Slaw, who's doing a phenomenal job in his first year there, basically repealing red flag gun confiscation and guaranteeing the right to firearm possession in our state law. Monday, March 2nd, the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, we need people to show up and speak in favor of this good pro-Second Amendment bill.
House Bill 1253, disconnection from statutory municipality. There is no date on this one.
Procedures related to civil asset forfeiture. This was just added this last week. House Bill 1250, Representative Ken DeGraff and Representative Bacon. So a good one there about repealing or going back against civil asset forfeiture. Really excited to see this one and get more details on it. No date yet. We'll keep you updated.
House Bill 1246, just introduced this week from Ken DeGraff, consumer regulated electric utilities. No date as of yet.
House Bill 1083, Protect Female Sports Act from Representative Scott Bottoms. Great bill being heard Monday, March 9th. This mirrors the ballot measure. The petitions were just turned in to protect girls' sports, but it'll be heard at 1:30 p.m. in the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, March 9th.
House Bill 1085, offer pregnant person do not abort form. We spoke about this one with Rep Keltie just a little bit ago. To be heard Wednesday in the House Health and Human Services Committee.
Yep, action only. Great bill from Carlos Baron and Eva Flanell, constitutional carry of a handgun. House Bill 1212, no date yet. We'll keep you updated on that one.
House Bill 1209, temporary decrease statutory property tax revenue limits. This is a bill from Rep Zukla, and it does not have a date as of today.
Another good bill from Senator Zamora Wilson, opt out of mail ballot packets for elections. So you could just not get anything in the mail. So maybe you have concerns about your mail getting stolen, anything like that. Good bill. Heard March 5th, Thursday, in the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. We'll talk about that one as we get closer.
Senate Bill 111, protections against child rape. We talked about this with Rep Bradley last week. We have no date as of yet, but we are very hopeful for this bill passing.
Senate Bill 108, transparency of legislative groups' money. This is that bill I referenced earlier where they're going after the Opportunity Caucus. It'll be very interesting to hear this one in committee, and I'd love to see the Democrats bicker at each other over this. It's going to be March 17th in the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee.
Senate Bill 86, reduce premium cigar excise tax. This is the Tom Sullivan good bill of the year, to be heard on March 3rd in Senate Finance.
Senate Bill 91, exclusion of newspaper deliverers as employees. A small little a good thing for freedom. Thursday, February 26th. I just didn't bring it up this week because we already had so many bills to talk about, but this Thursday in the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee. So keep an eye out for that one. If you want to see more new print news in our communities, then this is a good bill.
Senate Bill 90, exempt critical infrastructure from right to repair. Concerning this was introduced on the 10th by Senator Carson, Senator Snyder, as well as Rep Hartsook. No date as of today.
A minor increase in our freedom here, the alcohol beverage manufacturer sales, House Bill 1190, being heard March 12th. So we'll talk about that one as we get closer. But basically, yeah, just slightly loosening our alcohol laws. It's a good win.
Senate Bill 5, rights violation and immigration enforcement remedy. This passed committee and it is now on to the Senate floor. We've talked about this one multiple times. This is the crazy anti-ICE bill that's been making the rounds in the media, and we've talked yeah, let's hope this one doesn't make it through.
Yep, and then we got House Bill 1271. This is to create new taxes on alcohol sales to fund a impact and recovery enterprise, a government-run enterprise. Absolutely stupid. It's a new tax. It's not a fee. That's what they call it, though. House Bill 1271, no date yet.
House Bill 1275, law enforcement identification, immigration training requirements. This was introduced this week, and there is no date as of today.
Yeah, and this is the bill that says if you worked for ICE, you can't work for law enforcement in Colorado anymore. So we'll keep you updated on this one. Senate Bill 116, property tax modifications, basically allowing municipalities to levy a lodging tax. Basically, it's a way for more increasing property taxes, which is absolutely insane to be doing right now. But that's Mike Weissman and Yara Zoke, two not good legislators. No day yet.
House Bill 1276 protects safety of individuals who are immigrants. Another crazy immigration bill from Velasco and Garcia. No date as of today.
Yeah, this bill is wild, folks. If you're interested, look it up. But it basically doubles down on our sanctuary state, being a sanctuary state for illegal immigration here in Colorado. House Bill 1255, social media duty to report and search warrants. Don't like this one from Tammy Story and Lisa Cutter because basically it turns social media companies into this surveillance apparatus of the state, saying if they see something done illegally, they have to proactively be monitoring and looking for it and then reporting it to law enforcement. You know, it's not going to work. This one Polis could actually veto. So bad bill, House Bill 1255. We'll keep you updated when that one comes up for a hearing.
Senate Bill 4 this is the expansion of red flag laws. This will be heard in the House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee.
Yep, Monday, March 2nd. House Bill 1223, modifying certain tax expenditures. This is the one basically working around Tabor. Bad bill, no date yet. We'll keep you updated on this one.
House Bill 1222, modified tax expenditures. No date as of today.
Yeah, a lot of messing with our taxes. 1221. So these are the three bills, 1222 or 1223, 1222, and 1221. These were the three bills the Democrats released this last week. They had their big press conference about how basically they're going to close all these quote unquote corporate tax loopholes to raise more money. So they're massive tax increases on employers and businesses. Bad news here in Colorado. So those three bills are basically the package that we're going to talk a lot about going forward. I'm going to do a video on them too with Natalie Menton as well when she has time.
House Bill 1054, protections for worker safety. This is basically the OSHA bill to be heard on Thursday, February 26th in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee.
House Bill 1043, Transportation Network Company Discriminatory Practices. This is the one that goes after the rideshare companies. We brought it up last week. It did pass that committee last week. Now it's going into House Finance Committee. No date yet.
House Bill 1012, consumer protections to promote fair market pricing. Another crazy bill from Zoke, Brown, Lindstedt, and Weissman to be heard Tuesday, March 3rd in House Judiciary.
House Bill 1011 talked about this as a banning pet sales being heard Monday, February 23rd. Bad bill.
House Bill 1005, worker protection collective bargaining. This is basically last year's Senate Bill 5, where they tried to destroy the Labor Peace Act, and Polis thankfully vetoed it. It's passed committee and on to appropriations.
Senate Bill 18, legal protections for the dignity of minors. Bad bill. It did pass and is on into the Senate floor. So, of course, you got to protect kids. You know what I mean? You got to protect kids. This is that bill they removed, that Polis actually removed that worst segment of it about determining parental responsibility and parenting time based on gender identity. Polis got them to remove that, but nonetheless, still not a great bill.
Senate Bill 32, we talked about this one a little bit ago, to be heard Wednesday the 25th in the House Health and Human Services Committee at 1:30.
Housing developments on qualifying properties. House Bill 1001 did pass the House, scheduled in the Senate. Local government housing on March 4th.
House Bill 1148, protections for youth on social media, to be heard on March 11th in the House Judiciary.
The 3D gun ban 1144 did pass committee. It'll be on the House floor probably this week, so we'll keep an eye out for that.
House Bill 1137, requirements for campaign consultants. We talked about this one a little bit ago, to be heard tomorrow in the House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee at 1:30.
Requirements for firearm dealers. This is going to destroy gun shops. An absolutely horrible bill. Monday, March 2nd. Keep an eye out for that one.
House Bill 1125, parent penalties, minor using electric bicycle, to be heard Wednesday, March 4th in House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee.
Yeah, bad bill. House Bill 1113, modifications to elections, being heard Monday, tomorrow, February 23rd. Talked about that one.
House Bill 1108, Colorado Bureau of Investigation Access Federal Fingerprint Search Service. We talked about this one a little earlier, to be heard February 24th in the House Judiciary upon adjournment.
1114, allowed a minimum lot size for subject jurisdictions, and this one's a bad bill because it overrules local control. Past committee is onto the floor, so we'll probably see that this week.
House Bill 1084, voter transparency and ballot measures. We talked about this one earlier. House Civics, it will be heard tomorrow in the House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee at 1:30.
Another bad bill we're tracking this year, folks, is probably the most famous and infamous bill of the year, Senate Bill 97, decriminalize adult commercial sexual activity, the prostitution bill. They still don't have a date for it yet. It'd be very interesting to see what happens with this one, but we'll keep you updated as soon as it gets assigned to a committee for sure.
House Bill 1211, regulation of broadband services. We talked about this one a couple weeks ago. To be heard March 3rd in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee upon adjournment.
Prohibit surveillance, price, and wage setting, and another anti-business bill, 1210, March 12th. We'll keep you updated on that one, March 12th.
House Bill 1207, disclosure of demographic workforce data, to be heard March 5th in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee at 1:30.
House Bill 1206, improved funding to support development. We'll get more into that when we get a date on it, but yeah, it's going to be a bad bill. No date yet.
House Bill 107, modify Cora. This will be heard March 5th, State Senate Veterans Military Affairs Committee. Another terrible bill, another attack on Cora. We need to defend Cora with everything we can.
Definitely keep an eye on for that one, folks. This is another one to circumvent Tabor, to take more money for the state government and not have it apply to Tabor. Senate Bill 42 passed the committee it was heard in, and now is on to appropriations. So we'll keep you updated on that one when it comes up again.
Senate Bill 119, authorize local election ballot return. No date as of today.
Yeah, basically they say they're going to start doing. You can vote by email, or electronic voting, basically for your local elections. There's definitely some concerns about that. So that's it. We're there, and then we're going to get into the killed bills, gone but not forgotten bills. So these are the bills that died. Senate Bill 28, removal of wind energy from state energy goals. This bill did end up getting killed.
House Bill 1021, Second Amendment Protection Act. We both testified on this one. It was unfortunately killed on Tuesday.
Glad this one died. Rep. Winter's bill, their legislative committee testimony required oath, House Bill 1149. I know he's going to bring it back next year, but I'm glad this one didn't make it.
Senate Bill 27, Parental Equality and Child Empowerment Act, was unfortunately killed. Good bill from Senator Zamora Wilson.
The Children Are Not for Sale Act, 1082, to put child predators or sex trafficking children in jail for life, unfortunately, of course, was killed.
House Bill 1049, prohibit use of personally identifying feature. Good bill was killed from Scott Bottoms and Senator Baisley.
Weinberg's bill to have a 90-day legislative session, 120, was also unfortunately killed.
Limitations on bills introduced by General Assembly members was killed. Another Weinberg good bill by Weinberg, unfortunately.
Expand the deduction for retirement benefits from Weinberg as well. He had a series of good bills this year. House Bill 1062. This is the one that Bob Marshall actually voted to kill. So Bob Marshall, one of the most vulnerable Democrats up for election this year, voted against eliminating taxes on retirement income. I think that's a story that needs to be told as we get closer to election.
House Bill 1036, local taxes on vacant residential property. This was one of the best. This was probably the best bad bill to get killed. And by best bad bill, I mean it's the biggest win in probably the legislative session so far from a committee killing a bill.
A gas utility service. This was going to help us prevent them from banning natural gas in our homes. Good bill was killed this last week. House Bill 1129.
House Bill 1097, register and drive surplus military vehicles, was unfortunately killed in committee this week.
House Bill 1087, safeguard minors from sex-altering interventions from Rep. Bottoms, was also killed. That's all, folks. That's what we got. Appreciate you sticking with us for an hour and 2.5 hours. So much to talk about. Follow Free State Colorado during the week. Follow Michael Vance on X as well. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about these bills as we go forward. Especially tomorrow, Monday, is a day to watch at the state capitol. There's so much happening, so many different bills being heard. But really, pay attention, get involved, folks. We can have a voice. It matters. It makes a huge difference, and more people getting involved is a good thing ultimately. Michael, what are some of your closing thoughts here for tonight?
We're a third of the week through. We're a third of the way through. It's easy to get overwhelmed by everything that's happening, but right now this is as crazy as it's going to get. They're going to play some tricks at the end of the legislative session, so we need to watch out for that. But right now we're really in the heat of it. We're going to see a lot of bills slug through. Some bills are going to be disappointingly killed. Some of them are going to be surprisingly killed. Some bills are going to surprisingly pass as well. So it's just a matter of not getting your uh it's just a matter of keeping your hopes up and staying persistent and knowing that we nobody else is gonna do the job of saving you other than you. We all can do it if we come together. So keep your hopes up. This is a long fight. We're not gonna do it in a month. We're not gonna do it in 3 months. It's gonna take years, but you know what? We're gonna do it. We're gonna win just as long as we all stick together and we have each other's backs and we keep on fighting for Colorado.
Definitely, yeah. Friday was the 38th day. It was day 38. This last Friday was out of our 120-day legislative session. So yeah, good point, Michael. We're a third of the way through. It's only going to get crazier and we keep ramping up. But yeah, we're in the thick of it now. I mean, so many bills going through the session this week, are going through the Capitol this week. But yeah, 5 bills are out. I mean, the bills are out, I think. I'm not sure if all the bills are out now for all the legislators, but we basically have a good picture of all the legislation that we're fighting this year and the good bills to support. So let's do it. Let's see what we can do to support the good stuff and fight the bad stuff and get it. And it's important to show up and get involved at the legislature, but it's even more important to get this information out to the public, right? To say, did you know what's going on in the state capitol? Everybody is like scratching their head about this prostitution bill, but there's all these other bills we talk about every week that people need to be made aware of. So talk to your neighbors, talk to your community members, be that leader and be a leader. Show up and speak at the legislature, show up and even just do it over Zoom and do remote testimony. And then, use that for rallying people in your community to have some political change. But you can do it. We can do it. And hopefully this is a useful tool for you. But yeah, follow us throughout the week and we'll keep you updated as we go forward. But really appreciate everybody joining. Any other thoughts, Michael?
That's really about it right now. Just keep your spirits up and good luck, everybody. It's easy to get defeated and just keep do everything you can to get from getting discouraged.
Definitely appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate all the comments and Representative Keltie for joining us. It was a blast, and look forward to getting some more legislators on here every week and keep talking about legislation and making you informed about what's happening in our state government. So appreciate you, everybody. We'll see you again next Sunday, every Sunday at 7 p.m. Not sure if we'll do Easter or not. That might be the only one we miss. We'll have to figure that out. But other than that, we'll see you next week for sure. Yeah. Happy March. That'll be March 1st. So we'll see you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.